Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Shinigami Thousand-Year Blood War. Chapter 61. At this time, Hurley Bell's frosty expression also had a trace of solemnity. Facing Reiatsu's continuous improvement of Loic, she was gradually at a disadvantage in this contest. Can't figure out why I became so strong. Loic sneered, and then a huge force was placed on his arm. Hurley Bell, who was still able to compete with it, was immediately sent flying by this huge force. Boom! A white beautiful figure was blasted towards the rock wall of the cave, setting off a dense cloud of smoke and dust. Lord Hurley Bell, Sun and Sun's three daughters shouted worriedly when they saw this scene. But the next moment they felt as if they were being targeted by ferocious beasts, and an unimaginable sense of oppression instantly enveloped them. They looked in horror at the direction of the enemy, where a red flash was gathering. Don't worry, I'll let you all be smashed into ashes together, so that I can relieve the hatred in my heart. Loic raised his arm and pointed at them with a cruel smile. The red light was Sero condensed in his hand. Just when Loic was about to launch Sero, a white figure flashed in front of him and hit his arm instantly. Call out! The red Sero brushed past Sun and the others, tearing a hole through the stone wall in an instant, and bombarded towards the distant sky without stopping. Smelly woman, are you in a hurry to die? Loic looked at Hurley Bell, who reappeared in front of him, and said with some resentment. Lord Hurley Bell. Mira Rhodes and the others shouted in surprise. Get out of here quickly. Hurley Bell said in a deep voice with his back turned to them. But, just when Mira Rhodes and the others were about to say something, they were immediately interrupted by Hurley Bell. Run, this is an order. Sun, Apache, and Mira Rhodes glanced at each other, and could only answer, yes. Do you understand the difference in strength? That's fine, I just want to fight with you. Loic ignored Sun and the others who were fleeing, and smiled ferociously with his mouth open. This made Hurley Bell look serious, and the chill on her face became even more intense. In a sense, she was ready to sacrifice. Boom! Two huge Reiatsu rise here one after another and collide with each other non-stop. Even the mountain here began to shake non-stop. I am afraid that it will not be long before this mountain will collapse in their battle. When the fierce battle took place here, there was a sand dune not far from the cave. Are we just running like this? Mira Rhodes asked suspiciously while running. I don't want to either, but this is Lord Hurley Bell's order. Apache said helplessly. Even if we are there, we are not the enemy's opponent, but will cause trouble to Lord Hurley Bell. Sun, who was running on the other side, added. Suddenly, they all stopped and looked behind them, where the Reiatsu that originally belonged to Master Hurley Bell was descending at a rapid speed. Master Hurley Bell, Apache, who obeyed the order the most, turned around without hesitation, followed by Mira Rhodes and Sun. At this moment, the order to escape and rational analysis in their minds no longer existed, and they only had one belief at this time. Just go back. Go back. Go back again. Even at the cost of their lives, they still have to return to that Lord's side. Under the giant green mountain, Hurley Bell was half kneeling on the ground and panting with difficulty. The fierce battle just now even broke the huge sharp blade in her hand, which is enough to show how dangerous she was just now. Why? That's not enough. Loic, who was unharmed, said sarcastically. But Hurley Bell didn't pay attention to his words. Instead, she accumulated the last strength, and she wanted to use this last strength to defeat the enemy. At the beginning, I would be hacked by a guy like you. Now that I think about it, it's ridiculous. Loic touched the scar on his face and walked in front of Hurley Bell, saying with a sense of revenge. What? Hurley Bell yelled, swung the broken blade in his hand, and slashed out. Naive. Loic avoided the blow as if he had expected it, and then punched Hurley Bell in the abdomen. Rumble. Hurley Bell's body was blasted into the rock group, and the charge was stopped after knocking down a rock mountain. Ahem. Hurley Bell, who was lying on the rubble pile, tried to stand up again with his arms, but he couldn't get up after several attempts. At this time, Loic had already walked over. He looked at Hurley Bell, who was still struggling, and said with a sneer, now Hueco Mundo is undergoing tremendous changes, and all of you guys will become my stumbling block. Speaking of this, Loic condensed a long spear made of spirits in his hand, pointed the tip of the gun at Hurley Bell's head, and said with a hint of carelessness, you can rest assured that you will die, and wait for the torture. After finishing your 3 followers, I will send them to another world to reunite with you, ha ha ha. After hearing Loic's words, Hurley Bell said somewhat unwillingly, what's the point of his sacrifice in that case? Go to hell. After Loic finished speaking, he clenched a spirit spear in his hand and stabbed at Hurley Bell. At this moment, a Sero struck from a distance, directly bombarding his chest. What? Loic, who was under attack, was instantly pushed back, before he could see what was going on. Apache and Mira Rosna's huge human body rushed over, while Sun escaped with the injured Hurley Bell. Sun, Apache. Mira Rhodes. Hurley Bell said in disbelief as he opened his eyes and looked at the 3 who had returned. Loic said angrily after waving Apache and Mira Rhodes away. Although the attack of the 3 Apaches did not cause any damage to him, he was still very upset by the behavior of being disturbed. Listen, you monster, for Lord Hurley Bell, we will go through fire and water and die, but don't think that we have come back to die for nothing. Apache raised his deer head and said very cheeringly. Your newcomer's tone is not small. Mira Rhodes paused at this point, and then solemnly said, but I agree with what you said. Master Hurley Bell, it's been a real pleasure to be with you, and I hope it will be the same in the future. Sun turned back and smiled at Hurley Bell. I've always been protected by you, and now it's time for us to protect you. Apache said in a deep voice. You guys, Hurley Bell leaned on the broken blade in his hand and barely stood up and said. For some reason, an unknown emotion filled her heart at this moment. Let's go together. Mira Rhodes rushed out first after finishing speaking. TCH, she got ahead of me. Apache said after him. What 2 guys with big breasts and no brains? Sun did not forget to tease them at this time, but the speed of rushing out was not slower than them. I don't know how to live or die. Loic looked at the 3 women rushing over, clenched his fists and said cruelly. Sero. A pink beam shot out from Sun's mouth. Continuous false bullets. Apache, not to be outdone, formed several spirit balls from her antlers. Small tricks. Loic dodged Sun's Sero with a light leap, and then knocked out Apache's false bullets with several punches. And me. Mira Rhodes suddenly appeared behind Loic, waving her lion claws and attacking his back. Ding! There was an ear-piercing sound of friction, and Mira Rhodes' powerful lion claws only rubbed sparks on Loic's back. What? Mira Rhodes looked at this scene in shock, this is her proud lion paw. I can't even break through my steel skin, how weak. Loic turned around to face the terrified Mira Rhodes, and swung his fists vigorously. Mira Rhodes' huge body was sent flying like a cannonball, drawing a long ditch on the ground before stopping the charge. With just this one blow, Ijuka's level Mira Rhodes was already dead. Mira Rhodes. Seeing this scene, Sun and Apache rushed towards Loic crazily from another direction. But in the face of Loic's powerful strength, Sun and Apache were no match at all. After sustaining several consecutive attacks, the 2 suffered heavy injuries and were bombarded back. Boom! Sun's huge body fell from midair, just hitting Hurley Bell not far away. Hurley Bell looked at this scene with a frosty face, and she said in a deep voice to the 3 people who fell down, Sun, Apache, Mira Rhodes, you will not just die like this. At this moment, an unknown light shone in her pupils, and her body, which was covered in injuries, stood up again under this powerful belief. With your injured body, what else can you do to me? Loic said arrogantly as if he heard some joke. After shaking the broken blade in his hand, Hurley Bell's eyes were firmer than ever. Boom! Hurley Bell's figure suddenly began to blur, and when he reappeared, he had already flashed behind Loic. How is it possible? Loic said in shock. Not only was Hurley Bell's speed not affected by the injury, but it became even faster than before. What? Hurley Bell swung the broken blade in his hand and slashed at Loic at high speed, but only cut a small wound on his right arm. Even so, this was the first effective attack on Loic by Hurley Bell at all. Although this small wound would not affect Loic's combat power, he became furious, as if recalling the pain of the shattering of the mask back then. But for the angry Loic, not only did his speed not increase, but he was even more disadvantaged. Soon, another wound was drawn on Loic's chest by Hurley Bell. The next blow will kill you. After Hurley Bell dodged Loic's attack again, he rushed forward in a sneaky manner. Although her body was already in an extremely exhausted state, the faith in her eyes became stronger and stronger. What? Hurley Bell jumped into the air, flipped his body quickly, and formed a gust of wind to chop Loic. Boom! This impact produced a huge power, a strong aftermath spread in all directions, and set off waves of thick smoke and dust. At the place of the collision, there was an extremely huge pothole, and this blow caused the entire ground to be sunken by as much as 3 or 4 meters. In the center of the hole, Hurley Bell's broken blade was cutting Loic's shoulder, and drops of blood were dripping from here. He. Loic, who was dripping blood, not only did not show any fear at this time, but laughed instead. Your blade can only cut this kind of wound. Hurley Bell's pupils constricted for an instant, and just as she was about to withdraw her blade, a huge force grabbed her broken blade. It was Loic's palm, and he violently pulled out the broken blade from his shoulder, and lifted Hurley Bell's body. What? The powerful fist struck Hurley Bell's abdomen, instantly sending her into the sky. It's not over yet. Loic jumped on top of Hurley Bell at a faster speed, and swung his fists with both hands. Boom! It was another heavy blow, and Hurley Bell's body full of scars was directly blasted to the vicinity of Sun and the others. Lord Hurley Bell, Sun and the others who fell here said with tears in their eyes. They have all suffered heavy injuries, and it is extremely difficult to regain consciousness. Now, seeing Lord Hurley Bell fighting such a tragic battle with the enemy, he can't wait to play instead. As if hearing the voices of Sun and others, Hurley Bell's body full of scars stood up tremblingly again. I'm going to beat you, Hurley Bell said with difficulty. Normally speaking, with such a serious injury, Hurley Bell would never be able to stand up again. She could still stand up because her belief in her heart did not allow her to fall down at this moment. It looks like this, and you still dare to speak out. Loic narrowed his eyes tightly, exuding an astonishing murderous look. A spiritual spear was condensed by Loic, and it was thrown at Hurley Bell at an extremely fast speed. Looking at the spirit spear that was coming rapidly, Hurley Bell's exhausted body didn't even have the strength to move her feet. Is this sacrifice? Hurley Bell thought silently. At this moment, a human man suddenly appeared in front of her, and raised his hand to hold the spirit spear that was approaching at high speed. The person who came was Lin Shang, who came from the forest of Manos Grande. As soon as he arrived here, he found that Hurley Bell and others were in the most critical moment, so he shot without hesitation. Seeing that Lin Shang squeezed the Link Sea spear in his hand with a little force, he turned around and smiled at Hurley Bell. Long time no see, Hurley Bell. Are you? Hurley Bell asked suspiciously, and he didn't have the impression that he knew this person. Hueco Mundo Wilderness, White Snake, you saved my life back then. Lin Shang recalled the scene when he first came to this world. If he hadn't met Hurley Bell, he might not have made it this far up. Hearing Lin Shang's reminder, Hurley Bell also seemed to recall that scene, but it may be Lin Shang's thank you at the beginning that made her remember this incident. You're the little snake? Hurley Bell asked in surprise. She really couldn't compare the weak white snake at the beginning with the amazing Reiatsu Lin Shang at the moment. After all, the difference between the two is too much. Not bad. Lin Shang smiled helplessly. Why did he have another title? It's unbelievable. As soon as Hurley Bell said this, his eyes went dark, which was the fainting feeling caused by the body reaching its limit. Seeing Hurley Bell, who was not standing still, Lin Shang subconsciously put his arms around her shoulders to help her stabilize her body. You have done enough, leave it to me, Lin Shang said to Hurley Bell, who was half in his arms. That guy is very powerful, Hurley Bell said with a flushed face. It seemed that she was not used to being so close to a man. Don't worry, I'm stronger than him, Lin Shang said confidently, and then gently put Hurley Bell down so that she could sit on the ground and rest. Looking at the confident face of the man in front of him, Hurley Bell didn't know why, as if all the anxiety disappeared at this moment, leaving only an inexplicable sense of security. Looking at the fake Arrancar with half of his face full of sharp teeth, Lin Shang walked over slowly while observing the surrounding situation. Logically speaking, Eisen should have arrived at this time, but I didn't find any trace of him. Is it too good to hide? Or didn't come at all? I haven't seen the process of Kyoka Suigetsu's liberation, so there is no case where the 5 senses are blocked. So, Eisen is either not coming at all at this moment, or is hiding using some kind of item to hide Reiatsu. Thinking of this, Lin Shang decided to ask the monster like Arrancar in front of him, "Are you Eisen's subordinate? Why don't you see him? Oh, you actually know Master Eisen." Loic was first surprised that Lin Shang knew Master Eisen's name, and then Kaido, "How did Master Eisen come to this kind of place? To deal with guys like you, I'm the only one enough. Or, do you think that knowing Master Eisen's name can make my subordinates show mercy? I advise you to give up this unrealistic idea, no one will be able to save you today." At this time, Loic also reacted. He felt that the scene where Lin Shang pinched and exploded the Lingxi spear just now must have been an accident. Eisen. At this moment, Hurley Bell, who was sitting not far away, also pronounced the name. Although she didn't know who this person was, through the conversation between Lin Shang and Loic, she seemed to understand that the mastermind behind the attack on them might not be Baragan, but this existence named Eisen. "Since Eisen didn't come, you are useless," Lin Shang said, pulling out the Zanpakuto from his waist. "I don't know the heights of the sky and the earth, I want to tear you apart." Loic became furious when he heard the words. Today's events are definitely full of twists and turns for him. Every time he wants to succeed, there are always some unpleasant things happening. Now another human with such an arrogance has come, which has already made him lose his patience, and he urgently needs to kill these guys in front of him to vent his anger. Thinking of this, Loic once again condensed a spiritual spear in his hand, waved it and attacked Lin Shang. But it's a pity that the Lingxi spear only attacked an afterimage, but Lin Shang's voice sounded behind him. "It's too slow." A cold light flashed, and Loic, who was about to turn around, was cut with a long and narrow wound on his back. The pain from his back made Loic even more angry, and he began to swing around randomly, trying to hit Lin Shang who was approaching him. But Lin Shang retreated to the distance after the blow, and commented to Loic who was attacking randomly, "To be honest, your strength is a bit weak, much worse than Gargamel." Gargamel. Hearing this name, Loic, who was furious, paused for a moment. He looked at the human who was fighting against him in front of him, and seemed to think of something. "Could it be that you are that Lin Shang? It seems that you know me too." Lin Shang was surprised instead. Did Eisen hang up his information on the Zai Palace Square? How come everyone knows me? Ha ha ha, you are the prey specially ordered by Master Eisen. You must have escaped here from Gargamel's pursuit, right? Then I am really lucky. After hearing Lin Shang's confirmation, Loic not only instead of fear, he became excited. After all, capturing Lin Shang and dedicating it to Lord Eisen is a great achievement. It is not certain that he will replace Gargamel and Baragan and rule the Void Knight Palace. Loic clenched the spirit spear in his hand, and said eagerly, "It seems that I have to take you down before Gargamel and the others catch up here. That may disappoint you. I'm afraid the Gargamel you're talking about won't be here," Lin Shang said flatly. "Oh, you got rid of them. I'm afraid you will suffer a lot in my hands." Loic showed a cruel smile. "If Gargamel and the others can't get here in a short time, then they can torture this arrogant guy to their heart's content." "No, I mean," Lin Shang paused before continuing, "they no longer exist in this world." "Doesn't exist in this world? You mean to kill them all?" Loic was a little surprised at first, and then laughed wildly. "Ha ha ha, although I don't like that guy Gargamel, he has acquired the ultimate power just like me. Now you say that he has been defeated by you. This is really a good joke." Suddenly, Loic, who was laughing wildly, seemed to think of something. He pointed to Hurley Bell and others not far away and said, "You want to use this to disturb my mind, and then run away with those stinky women, right?" What Loic said made even Hurley Bell, Sun and others not far away hesitate. After all, they have a deep understanding of Loic's strength, and now it is not unacceptable if Lin Shang takes them away. Lin Shang shook his head and decided not to talk nonsense with him anymore. A person like Loic who is addicted to self-fantasy and cannot extricate himself can't be broken by words alone. Speaking of which, the first batch of Espadas were really not very good. Whether it was Gargamel before or Loic today, they are all like puppets. They are lost in the power of sitting in a well and looking at the sky. They have no ideals, no beliefs, only madness and tyranny, and they are complete failures. It's really poor people. Let you people who sit in a well and watch the sky, see what real power is. Lin Shang raised the Zanpakuto in his hand and pointed his sword at the sky. Wake up, Sky Dragon Shu. A huge golden beam of light suddenly rose here, a terrifying sense of suffocation permeated everyone's hearts, and the whole world seemed to tremble in front of this power, which was a powerful Reiatsu far surpassing Loic. How is it possible? Loic said in disbelief as he felt the huge Reiatsu. This force. Hurley Bell, who was not far away, also watched this scene dumbfounded. She never thought that someone could have such a powerful Reiatsu. The most unbelievable thing for her was that this powerful and terrifying power was actually emanating from the little white snake she had rescued at the beginning. It's unbelievable. Mira Rhodes, who was lying on the ground, said in shock when she saw the huge beam of light. Ahem, I take back my original sentence, Sun, he must not be related to you by blood. Apache, who was lying nearby, didn't tease Sun at this time. They also heard the conversation between Lin Shang and Hurley Bell just now, and they also knew that Lin Shang was the little white snake they met back then. That's why Apache said that. It's just that Sun's attention was not here at all at the moment. She looked at the beam of light in the distance and didn't know what she was thinking, so she didn't respond to Apache's teasing. As the Reiatsu beam of light dissipated, a heroic man wearing a dragon horn mask, holding a cold dragon sword, and covered in golden dragon armor appeared. Looking at the heroic man with a huge Reiatsu in front of him, Loic couldn't help taking a step back, and asked with some horror, "Who are you?" "The one who took your life." As soon as the words fell, Lin Shang's figure disappeared as if teleporting, and when he reappeared, he had already arrived in front of Loic. Brush. A cold light flashed, and Loic didn't even see the movement of the other party swinging the knife clearly, and his right arm holding the spiritual spear had already been thrown out. Ah! Loic howled in pain while clutching his blood-gushing right shoulder. The sword just now was cut by Hurley Bell, and now this sword is swung for Sun and the others. Lin Shang said indifferently. His sword arm swung again, this time Loic's left leg. I haven't lost yet. Loic knelt on the ground and roared unwillingly. A red flash condensed from his only remaining palm, it was a Sero, and it shot towards Lin Shang who was nearby at an extremely fast speed. Boom! Here the red Sero exploded into a sea of flames, and the raging flames burned the sky red. Ha ha ha! Loic laughed crazily on his distorted face when he saw his full blow hit directly. What are you laughing at? Suddenly, a deep voice came from the sea of flames, which immediately stopped Loic's crazy laughter. I saw a slender figure walking out of the burning flames. As he walked, those flames seemed to be afraid of him, and immediately dispersed to both sides. Loic's pupils constricted, he looked at the unharmed Lin Shang, and said as if he had seen a ghost, impossible. Quote. Okay, let's continue the topic I just talked about, and the next sword. Lin Shang paused here, touched his chin and thought for a while, and then continued, just treat it as if I bought 2 and got 1 free for you. Bar. But you can rest assured, I move very quickly and it won't hurt. Lin Shang slowly raised the dragon blade and pointed it at Loic. Ah! Loic looked at the approaching cold light in horror, and only then did he understand how helpless his proud strength was. Call out. As a white light ball flew out, Loic disappeared in Hueco Mundo forever. It is much worse than the spiritual sun provided by Gargamel. Lin Shang clenched his fists and felt the abundant spiritual seeds in his body. Although his current strength has returned to Jillian's peak level again, there is still a long way to go before breaking through to Ajuka's. How are your injuries? After finishing off Loic, Lin Shang walked up to Hurley Bell and the others. Reiatsu has recovered a bit, and I'm afraid the injury will take some time to recuperate. Hurley Bell said after a break, standing up independently. As for Sun and the others, the most dangerous moment has passed at this moment, at least their lives are not in danger. Hey, I didn't expect you to be so powerful, you really surprised us. Apache limped over and said. It's hard to imagine, you were that little white snake back then. Mira Rhodes barely supported her body and walked at this moment. As a virtual body, this benefit is amazing. You two cripples are really rude, but you just saved us and Mrs. Hurley Bell. Sun swam around and said contemptuously to the two of them. You immediately attracted the glares of Apache and Mira Rhodes. Just when the three of them were about to quarrel, Lin Shang just introduced himself appropriately. let's get to know each other again, my name is Lin Shang. Hearing Lin Shang's words, Sun immediately covered his mouth and said softly, Kaido, thank you for saving us, Lin Shang. Thank you. At this time, Hurley Bell on the side also said softly, if it wasn't for Lin Shang's good ears, he really wouldn't have heard it. Actually, you don't have to be like this. After all, you also saved me once, so don't be so polite to each other. Lin Shang said with a wave of his hand. After reminiscing about the old days, Hurley Bell looked at the injuries of Sun and the others, and decided that it would be better to go back to the cave to heal their injuries, so he invited Lin Shang, that's our cave, do you want to go in and have a sit down? Now their injuries are very serious, if there is another sneak attack at this time, the consequences will be disastrous. But if they have such a strong and reliable partner guarding them, they will be able to recover from their injuries quickly. Just when Lin Shang was about to agree, his expression suddenly turned serious, and he said to Hurley Bell and the others in a deep voice, I'm afraid I can't go for the time being, because there is another special guest here. A special guest? Hurley Bell and the others suddenly became puzzled. Is anyone here? What a keen sense. Suddenly, a flat tone came from behind them, which immediately attracted everyone's attention. I saw a gentleman in white feathers and a pair of black-rimmed glasses standing there. When Hurley Bell and the others were shocked. They hadn't noticed the trace of this person's appearance before. Looking at Eisen, who seemed to be standing here all the time, Lin Shang's face was full of dignity, and he was only one step ahead of Hurley Bell and the others. Officially, my name is Eisen Sosuke. The gentleman, Eisen, introduced himself. Eisen, Hurley Bell, Sun and others looked at each other in blank dismay. Is this the mastermind behind Loic? Realizing that Eisen didn't seem to be looking for trouble, Lin Shang's expression eased a little, but he still didn't relax his vigilance. After thinking about it, Lin Shang said, may I ask a question? Of course, Lin Jun doesn't have to be so restrained. Eisen smiled gently, it seems that he already knew Lin Shang's true identity. I wonder when Mr. Eisen has been here. Although Lin Shang asked calmly on the surface, he raised Eisen's danger level to the highest in his heart. Although Eisen is a gentleman who always smiles on the surface, in fact he is a person who does whatever it takes to achieve his goals. Just when you used this power, I was here. Eisen looked at Lin Shang's returning blade form, showing an interested smile. Was it there at that time? Lin Shang was surprised inwardly. He didn't realize it until a moment ago, and this is probably Eisen's intentional tell. All kinds of information about Eisen flashed in his mind, and Lin Shang judged that with Eisen's arrogance, he should not deceive himself about this kind of thing. That is to say, even if Eisen does not liberate Zanpakuto, his strength will be stronger than his own after returning to the blade. At this moment, countless thoughts had already flashed through Lin Shang's mind. Why, does Mr. Lin have any questions about the time I came here? Eisen looked at Lin Shang, who had been silent all this time, and asked with a smile. No, I was just thinking, what is your purpose for coming here? Lin Shang asked knowingly. I see. Eisen nodded, and then explained his reason for coming. Actually, one of my subordinates came here privately. After learning about this, I rushed here too. Originally, I planned to deal with this ignorant subordinate myself, but I didn't expect to see Lin Jun in this form, so I handed over the right to deal with this subordinate to Lin Jun. I don't know if my explanation is acceptable to Lin Jun. The corners of Eisen's mouth were slightly raised, and there seemed to be an unknown light shining in his black-framed glasses looking at Lin Shang. Originally, he could have arrived here one step earlier, but when he was about to leave the Void Knight Palace, he learned of Amber's report, so he was a little late. Of course, he also learned about Lin Shang and Stark's information, and became more interested in it. It seems that I misunderstood Mr. Eisen. Lin Shang did not intend to expose this matter, and both parties have such a step down, which is more convenient for the next negotiation. Apache on the side was a little irritable, but was stopped by Hurley Bell. Anyone with a discerning eye can now see that once a conflict occurs, it will be very detrimental to one of them, so whether Lin Shang is making false claims with the other party, or has other ideas, it is best to stand still at this moment. In fact, Lin Shang also knew that this attack was completely led by Eisen. Eisen's original plan should be to subdue Hurley Bell, but looking at the current situation, he should be interested in him. Since it's all a misunderstanding, how about we just let the matter out? Eisen pushed the frame of the mirror and said. Of course, in fact, I have long wanted to have a chat with Mr. Eisen. Lin Shang said calmly. Oh, what a coincidence, I was just about to chat with Mr. Lin. Eisen said with a smile. Then Mr. Eisen, please speak first, I'm all ears. Lin Shang raised his hand and said. Since this is the case, I will be blunt. I want to invite Lin Jun to create a new world with me. A new world. Lin Shang had already guessed Eisen's purpose, but he still pretended not to know. That's right, destroy the existing decadent world and recreate a new world dominated by us. Eisen gave a slightly emotional speech. From his tone and actions, it seems that we can see how beautiful that new world is. This is an interesting thing. Lin Shang pretended to be very interested and said, but in fact he didn't look forward to Eisen's new world at all. The so-called Eisen new world is to surpass Shinigami, obtain the king key and become the sole king, then destroy the existing world, and create a new world to satisfy his desire to rule. It doesn't sound that bad, but this approach will destroy the original creatures and the world, and even if they survive, they will become Eisen's playthings. Moreover, in cooperation with Eisen, it is relatively safe in the early stage, but in the later stage, it basically does not end well, either being killed by the opponent or being killed by Eisen. In the face of such a big risk, and it is completely useless to him, how could Lin Shang yearn for the new world that Eisen said? I don't know what Lin Jun wants. Eisen asked with a gentle smile. Actually, I'm more interested in Mr. Eisen's other plan, which is the virtual Arrancarization. Lin Shang said, breaking the subject. Oh, Mr. Lin has realized Arrancarization, are you still interested in this aspect? Eisen asked, slightly puzzled. Actually, what I'm good at is not fighting. My real identity is a scientific researcher. I have been working on the research of virtual Shinigami. Lin Shang said with a smile on his face. Those who didn't know thought that he had devoted himself to scientific research. How much painstaking effort. Of course, these words are all made up by him at random, his real purpose is to contact Hogyoku. It's unbelievable. I thought Hueco Mundo only had Zale Aporo as a scientific research talent, but Lin Jun is also an expert in this field. Eisen said with some surprise, he really didn't expect Lin Shang to be a scientist. Zale Aporo followed me for this reason. You must have known the result. Besides me, Hueco Mundo has 2 more Arrancars. It's just that there are some key props missing, so it is impossible to carry out large-scale Arrancarization. Lin Shang said slowly, the other 2 Arrancars he mentioned were of course Stark and Lilinet. Key props? Eisen asked Kaido with a half-smile, he already guessed what Lin Shang was referring to. Yes, I learned from Gargamel that Mr. Eisen seems to have such a key prop. The corners of Lin Shang's mouth curled up, and he wanted to tell Eisen that he was interested in Hogyoku. So, I do have such a prop in my hand, and I have used its ability to create a lot of Arrancars, but they are all fake Arrancars. Eisen said frankly. It may be that Mr. Eisen's method is wrong, and Zale Aporo and I happen to have very mature practical experience in this regard. Lin Shang said, pointing out the importance of himself and others. It seems that if I don't add more chips, I'm afraid I won't be able to convince Mr. Lin. Eisen said calmly. Isn't mutual benefit better? Mr. Eisen. Lin Shang also put away his smile at this moment, and even became on high alert. He didn't know if Eisen would give in on the right to use Hogyoku. Eisen pondered for a while, and then showed that gentle smile again and said, forget it, I will leave the matter of Arrancar to Mr. Lin. In his opinion, Lin Shang and others are nothing more than ants. Even if they borrow Hogyoku temporarily, he can get it back at any time. This is Eisen's confidence in his control of the overall situation. Then thank you Mr. Eisen. No, it should be called Master Eisen now. Lin Shang breathed a sigh of relief and smiled Kaido. In this way, he not only obtained the right to use Hogyoku, but also made Eisen mistaken about his true purpose. After all, from the very beginning, he never thought about relying on the power of these foreign objects to defeat Eisen. Of course, obtaining the right to use Hogyoku is itself an important step in the plan. After all, with Hogyoku, many of Lin Shang's subsequent plans will be much easier. So, I will wait for you in Zai Palace, I think Mr. Lin will not disappoint me. Eisen said with his gentle smile again, and gave Lin Shang a meaningful look. The people he mentioned are not only Lin Shang and Hurley Bell, but also Stark and Zale Aporo. Of course, there may also be Nailu and Ulquiorra. Looking at Eisen who had disappeared without a trace, Lin Shang frowned. In the end, why did Eisen look at him as if he knew everything? With Eisen's personality, he must have conducted a thorough investigation of himself, but Lin Shang estimated that at most he would know about his companions, and it is absolutely impossible to know some core secrets about himself. After all, there are some things that even Stark and Lynette, who know the most, don't know. Lin Shang, what's the matter with you? At this moment, Hurley Bell and the others came over and asked Lin Shang, who was a little restless. Oh, it's okay, I just suddenly remembered something. Lin Shang reacted at this moment, and said casually. The confrontation with Eisen actually put a lot of pressure on him. After all, not only he is planning Eisen, but Eisen is also planning him, so Lin Shang has to consider everything carefully. That guy was always laughing just now, I couldn't help it. Apache said a little aggressively, if Master Hurley Bell hadn't stopped her just now, she would definitely have scolded Eisen. The man just now is obviously not an enemy that can be defeated easily. If Lord Hurley Bell hadn't protected you, you would have been killed long ago. Mira Rhodes on the side analyzed with a big picture. Apache was quite unconvinced. Just when she was about to say something, Hurley Bell interrupted her. Apache, don't mess around. Yes, Mrs. Hurley Bell. Facing Hurley Bell's scolding, Apache was not arguing. In fact, she just thought that since Eisen was behind the scenes, he was their enemy, and it was unacceptable to cooperate with him now. Looking at Hurley Bell who was silent again, Lin Shang asked a little strangely, Hurley Bell, why don't you ask me why I want to cooperate with Eisen? Loic, who attacked Hurley Bell and the others, was standing behind Eisen. After talking with Eisen just now, Hurley Bell's reaction was so flat after listening. If you hadn't talked with the other party just now, I'm afraid we are all dead bodies now. Hurley Bell said coldly. I see. Lin Shang nodded. It seemed that Hurley Bell also saw the situation clearly, and then explained the reason. Actually, what I just talked about with Eisen about Arrancar is for you. For us. Hurley Bell and the others listened immediately. They have all recovered from their injuries at the moment, and at least their actions are not affected too much, but Reiatsu is still in a relatively weak state. That's right, you must all understand Loic's power. After seeing Hurley Bell and the others nodding in silence, Lin Shang continued, before Arrancar, he should only have the strength of Ijuka's level, but after Arrancar, his strength is still as strong as that of Hurley Bell. The most important point above Vasto Lord is that Loic is just a fake Arrancar, a failed evolution. Hearing that such a powerful Loic turned out to be just an Arrancar that had failed to evolve, Sun and the others showed incredulous expressions, and even Hurley Bell was a little surprised. And the real Arrancar is actually like me, the mask is basically broken and holds Shinigami's Zanpakuto, and of course the returning blade power I just used. At this moment, Lin Shang has withdrawn from the returning edge state, but it does not affect his description of the strength of Arrancar based on his own standards. So that's how it is. After hearing Lin Shang's description, Hurley Bell and others understood the true meaning of Arrancar at this moment. Originally, they thought that Arrancar was as ugly as Loic, but they didn't expect it to be just a fake Arrancar. Then what you talked about with Eisen just now is a prop that can make Arrancar succeed. Hurley Bell said by analogy. Yes, only with the help of this prop can you and other companions evolve into real Arrancars. Lin Shang smiled at Kaido. To be honest, what Lin Shang said touched Sun and the others somewhat, especially Apache, who actually felt a little bit blaming Lin Shang just now. Thank you, Lin Shang. Hurley Bell's voice was much clearer this time. In her opinion, after each of them saved each other once, they were evened out, and now Lin Shang has given them such an evolutionary path, which is a new kindness. Can we be considered companions now? Lin Shang suddenly asked solemnly. Looking at Lin Shang who suddenly became serious, Hurley Bell said without hesitation, of course, when you rescued us, we were already partners. Hearing Hurley Bell's reply, Lin Shang smiled brightly and said, then don't be so polite anymore, after all, we are comrades fighting side by side. For a period of time afterwards, Lin Shang stayed here for the time being. He wanted to wait for Hurley Bell and the others to recover, and then pick up Nailu and the others, and then went to Zai Palace together. King's Lander. The mask of flesh and blood, Vientiane, fluttering wings, and the name of human beings. Burning heat and strife, across the sea to the south, step forward. 31 of Hado, Red Cannon. In the Soul Society's Junyang Lingshu Academy, Lin Shang aimed at the target in front of him and fired a flame that condensed high-strength spiritual particles. Boom! The red flame hit the bullseye directly, and the entire target began to burn fiercely. Dongfang Yunsheng, the intermediate Kido grade is excellent. The teacher watching from the side announced with satisfaction. Okay, you really deserve to be Brother Yunsheng, Kido is so good. After Lin Shang walked down, Zongwang Taranojiro immediately ran over and said excitedly, as if he had scored this score. Don't say that, I believe you can do it too, Tarajiro. Lin Shang encouraged with a smile. Really? Hearing Brother Yunsheng say that, I seem to be full of confidence. Zongwang Taranojiro said excitedly, and then excitedly went to prepare for the next Kido test in their class. Really? Lin Shang shook his head and smiled helplessly, then stood here and watched. At this time, it has been more than half a year since they entered the Junyang Academy of Spiritual Art. In the first month, Lin Shang, Abarai Renji, Hinamori Momo, and Kira Izuru were promoted to the second class. To the disappointment of Abarai Renji, Rukia Kuchiki had been promoted to the third class at that time. Just when he thought Rukia would firmly secure the position of senior sister, in the third month of enrollment, they were finally promoted to the third class, and Abarai Renji also met Rukia Kuchiki as he wished. Unfortunately, it didn't take long for Rukia and Lin Shang to be promoted to the fourth class. Rukia's promotion was acceptable to them. After all, she had been studying in the third class for a while, but what happened to Dongfang Yunsheng? Everyone has been on the same front, but you suddenly ran ahead of us. In fact, this can't be blamed on Lin Shang, who is called Abarai Renji, and they started to fail their exams. Since he was promoted to the third class, Abarai Renji's Kido began to fail, mainly because he made the formation of launching Kido too big. It is estimated that if the invigilator was not there, he would have blown up the entire examination venue. As for Hinamori Momo and Kira Izuru, they are just the opposite of Abarai Renji. Both of them have excellent results in Kido, but they are much worse in chopping and white hits. So far, it is the 8th month of enrollment. Lin Shang has been promoted to the 5th class, Rukia Kuchiki is also at the top of the 4th class, Abarai Renji, Hinamori Momo, and Kira Izuru are still in the 3rd class study. As for Lin Shang's younger brother, Zongwang Taranojiro, because he is slightly inferior in talent, he has just been promoted to the 2nd class at this time. But that's okay, because the Junyang Academy of Spiritual Art is relatively free to move around, and several people can still often see each other, especially when they study in some shared venues. They even make some comparisons. Muneo Tarajiro, the junior Kido score is excellent. Just as Lin Shang was recalling the events during this period, Zongwang Tarajiro's test score also came out, and his score was actually quite good in the 2nd class. Hey, what are you looking at here? Suddenly, a figure came from behind Lin Shang, and asked with his arms around his shoulders like a good buddy. Hearing this familiar voice, Lin Shang knew who it was without looking, and said without looking back, "If you don't go to Rukia, how come you have time to come here, Renji?" Haha, didn't I fail the Kido test last time, so I came here to study. Abarai Renji said without embarrassment at all. Did you hang up again? Then how much is it this time? Lin Shang asked the rather generous Abarai Renji with a sideways glance. TCH, it's still the top grade of elementary Kido. Abarai Renji said with some dissatisfaction. After he was promoted from the 2nd class to the 3rd class, the Kido score has not changed. At this time, Zongwang Taranojiro ran over excitedly holding a piece of paper. Brother Yunsheng, I passed the upper class of junior Kido this time. Even the teacher said that my grades are not bad. Suddenly, Zongwang Tarajiro saw that there was another person next to Brother Yunsheng, who turned out to be Abarai Renji, and said happily, Brother Renji, is your class also taking the Kido test? I wonder how many points Brother Renji scored this time. Just now Big Brother Sheng's score surprised me, he actually got an honor in the intermediate Kido. Hearing this, Abarai Renji pointed at Lin Shang first, and then at Zongwang Taranojiro, and said angrily, "Did you two join forces to piss me off?" "How could it be, brother Renji?" Munioki Tarajiro said with a puzzled look on his face. Although he also met Abarai Renji through Lin Shang, he rarely communicated with him. "Don't irritate Renji, his Kido score hasn't changed since he reached the elementary Kido upper class, ha ha ha." Lin Shang seemed to think of the disheartened Renji in the venue, and couldn't help laughing up. Muno Tarajiro was also a little at a loss. He really didn't come to provoke Abarai Renji, who would have thought that the usually strong brother Renji would be similar to him in terms of Kido. Abarai Renji covered his heart, and complained to Lin Shang, "Student Yun Shang, what you said hurts my heart even more." Okay, I won't irritate you anymore. Let's talk about tomorrow's soul burial practice. Do you have any notice?" Lin Shang stopped smiling and asked them. "Well, we have also received a notice. It is said that this time the seniors of the 6th grade will lead the team." Abarai Renji said, recalling the content of the notice. "Is there such a thing? Why didn't we notify you?" Zongwang Taranojiro said with a puzzled expression. "It should be that only the 3rd to 6th classes will participate this time, so of course you have not been notified for the 2nd class." Lin Shang concluded. Then he asked Abarai Renji, "Will Rukia participate in this real-life internship?" "It's hard to say, as you know, Rukia's family has too many rules. Without the permission of Kuchiki's family, I'm afraid she won't be able to participate in this internship." Abarai Renji said with a regretful face. Except for being able to meet Rukia a few times in the academy, he didn't even have the chance to say a word to Rukia at other times and places. After all, the Soul Society is still a world ruled by nobles. In some respects, even the Junyang Academy of Spiritual Art cannot completely force the wishes of the nobles, let alone an ordinary student. Really, it might be a good thing not to participate. Lin Shang murmured. "What? Did you say something just now, Yunsheng?" Abarai Renji seems to have heard Lin Shang mumbling just now, but he couldn't catch what he said. "It's okay, I just said it's a pity that Rukia can't come." Lin Shang casually said. "That's right, it's such a great opportunity to go to the real world to have a look. I'll ask Rukia again to see if there's any turning point." Abarai Renji hurried out after saying this. "Brother Renji, you are really a man of temperament." Muneo Tarajiro looked at Abarai Renji's back, and finally remembered such a word and said. "Okay, I'm going back to prepare for tomorrow's internship." Lin Shang waved his hand at Taranojiro, and then walked to the outside of the field. "Well, I will try my best to catch up with you, big brother Yunsheng." Zongwang Taranojiro nodded and said. In fact, he is also a relatively good existence in the 1st and 2nd classes, but who let him meet monsters like Lin Shang and the others. The next day, early morning. On a square in the Junyang Academy of Spiritual Art. A large number of people gathered here, namely the students of Class 1 of the 3rd period, Class 1 of the 4th period and Class 1 of the 5th period. They will follow several students of the 6th period to the present world for soul burial practice. "Renji, Kira, Taozi, you guys came so early." Lin Shang came over with the sealed state on his back and said hello. "It should be because you came too late." Abarai Renji corrected him. "That's right, it's about to start, Dongfang." Hinamori Momo added softly. Looking around, Lin Shang found that there was no sign of Rukia, and instantly guessed that Abarai Renji must have failed. However, there is no disappointment on Renji's face, so I don't want to mention it myself, so as not to affect their mood. After all, it may not be a good thing to go. By the way, have you heard? The person who led our internship this time is actually the chief senior student of the 6th grade, Hisagi Shuahei. Kira Izuru said expectantly. It seems that he went to check the information on purpose. Who is he? Is he famous? Abarai Renji asked very curiously. He didn't pay much attention to these things usually. You don't know. Kira Izuru was surprised, and then explained to him. Hisagi Shuahei is the first one who decided to join Gotei 13 before graduation in several years. Having said that, Kira Izuru looked at Lin Shang with a weird expression. He forgot that there is a more pervert here. You talk about yourself, why do you want to see me? Lin Shang said innocently. This made Abarai Renji laugh out loud, and even Hinamori Momo covered his mouth and chuckled. While they were chatting, two men and a woman came from not far away. They stood in front of the world transmitting gate, facing everyone and scolded. Quiet. It seemed that the leader of the 6th-year students had arrived, and the rioting crowd suddenly stopped making noise. I am Hisagi Shuahei, a 6th grader. The man standing in the middle with the number 69 tattooed on his cheek introduced himself. I'm Kanazawa. I'm Qinglu. The short girl and the tall man, both of the 6th grade, also introduced themselves. Next, the three of us will be your team leaders and guide you through this internship. Hisagi Shuahei announced. Then from now on, we will divide you into groups of 3 and take action. The girl named Kanazawa said as she took out a lottery tube. After everyone got the papers he had drawn one by one, Kanazawa said again, look at the lottery drawn just now, and just look for students with the same mark to form a team. Mine is the plum blossom mark, what about you? Kira Izuru asked as he showed the paper. Hey, does it need to be said? Of course mine is plum blossom too. Aburai Renji smiled and showed his mark. I also have the mark of plum blossoms, so we will be in the same team. Hinamori Momo said happily. Originally, she was worried about forming a team with someone she didn't know well, but it turned out to be Renji and the others. Hinamori Momo, who was looking happy, suddenly remembered that there were 4 of them. Then he turned to a worried expression and said, if there are only 3 people in each team, then Dongfang students. It's just a temporary team. It's fine for me to team up with others, but you 3 should be more careful. Lin Shang waved his hands and said indifferently, and instead told them to pay attention. Yunsheng, although you have been promoted to the 5th stage earlier than us, we will not lose to you in this trial. Aburai Renji said confidently. He, Kira, and Hinamori are all familiar people, and their cooperation with each other is definitely much better than Lin Shang's temporary team. He is not sure that he can win Lin Shang one-on-one, but they have a strong relationship between the teams, self-confidence. I won't lose either. Lin Shang also showed a confident smile, and then turned to look for his teammates. At this moment in the square, most people found their team, only one was still 2 people, so Lin Shang found it easily. It seems that you are my teammates. Lin Shang came over and said hello. It turned out to be you. One of the teenagers with extraordinary temperament said in surprise after hearing Lin Shang's voice. Oh, what a coincidence. After seeing this person clearly, Lin Shang was also a little surprised. Isn't this person a nobleman? Why do you also participate in this kind of trial? It turned out that this person was the noble boy named Jiyu Chuan during the entrance examination. Judging from the situation at the time, the status of this young man should not be low. He appeared here without the participation of other nobles. This abnormal situation made Lin Shang puzzled. As if seeing Lin Shang's confusion, the noble boy named Jiyu Chuan said disdainfully, I am different from other nobles. Most of them will join the 6th team after graduation, but I, Furukawa, will join the 2nd team after graduation. Fan team. Feng Guchuan, Team 2. Lin Shang asked in surprise. He had never heard of this name, but this surname and its connection with the 2nd team made him think of someone. What's your relationship with the captain of the 2nd squad? Lin Shang asked curiously. What? You know my aunt. This time it was Feng Guchuan's turn to be surprised. He just mentioned his name and future aspirations. This commoner from Rukongai guessed his identity. Feng Guchuan, the 10th generation descendant of the lower-level noble Feng family, his father and 4 uncles all died in the line of duty. The current head of the family is Sui Fan, the only heir of the 9th generation, who is also the captain of the 2nd team Sui Feng. If you don't have me, just ask. Lin Shang was ashamed. When did Sui Feng have a nephew? Sure enough, the waters of this soul society are very deep, and he inadvertently discovered something that he didn't know in the original book. But in this way, it is not surprising that Feng Guchuan participated in this trial. After all, the 2nd team, alias is called the Stealth Mobile Team. The team members are biased towards high mobility, Grandmaster assassination skills, stealth skills, and belong to the special team that operates on the dark side. If you take part in a virtual cutting trial, of course, the family will not object up. My name is Miharu Taro, are you 2 friends? At this time, the majestic man standing aside also said aloud. When he was alone with this noble boy just now, he felt uncomfortable for a long time, and it was not until Lin Shang walked over that the atmosphere was broken. Friends are not counted, but enemies are possible. Feng Guchuan folded his arms and said quite arrogantly. Although their family is only a low-level nobleman, his aunt is powerful, so sometimes even the middle-level nobles are secretly headed by him. It is absolutely impossible for a mere Rukongai citizen to want to be friends with him. Lin Shang smiled, and didn't intend to learn as much as Feng Guchuan. Because since Lin Shang learned that he was Sui Feng's nephew, Lin Shang treated him like a child. In front of the crossing gate, Hisagi Shuahei glanced around with a stern face and said, "It seems that everyone has formed a team. Now, let's explain the internship situation." The people who were getting acquainted with each other suddenly fell silent, ready to listen to what Hisagi Shuahei and others would say next. "We have selected a suitable area in this world and set up an enchantment there, and then you will conduct simulated combat training there." The girl named Kanazawa said coldly. In fact, the so-called soul burial trial is to defeat the ghost near the false soul, and then simulate the scene of soul burial. Of course, although we have helped you find an area that is convenient for fighting, the fighting itself is not guaranteed, and you'd better be mentally prepared. Hisagi Shuahei added. This made most of the students nervous. After all, many of them are not good at even ordinary fighting, let alone fighting Shu, although this Shu is simulated. But even if they were a little nervous, they understood that this was a necessary step, so no one flinched. Seeing that no one quit, Hisagi Shuahei announced, "Since there are no problems, let's go." I saw the huge transgressive gate standing behind Hisagi Shuahei and others suddenly opened, and through the gate, one could see rippling white light like the surface of water. Is this the world-transmitting gate? Sure enough, in appearance, he is a little taller than the black cavity. Lin Shang looked at the world-crossing gate and complained inwardly. In the present world, a crystal-clear full moon hangs in the dark night sky, and the bright moonlight falls on the sea, sparklingly reflecting a nearby port city surrounded by enchantments. Suddenly, a huge Japanese-style sliding door appeared from this quiet and deserted city. As the door leaf moved to both sides, figures emerged from the door. Is this the present world? Abarai Renji and others looked at the buildings all over the place and said in amazement, they had no impression of the present world for a long time. Well, it's also a place with a good view. Lin Shang exclaimed looking at the scenery here. Student Dongfang really looks like a poet. Hinamori Momo said softly. Lin Shang smiled. If he was really asked to compose a poem, the first line would probably be, "The moon is dark and the wind is high and the night kills people." At this time, Hisagi Shuahei jumped to a relatively high place and said to everyone, "Next, you will conduct the trial of soul burial in this city. Of course, we will have personnel to evaluate your actions. I hope you can get a good grade. Now the trial officially begins." Following Hisagi Shuahei's order, the crowd immediately dispersed, leaving only the guidance group and enchantment group of the 6th grade students in place. Next, we are going to observe the situation of the candidates. You are distributed to the edge of the enchantment, be careful, and don't let Junsu invade here. Hisagi Shuahei told several members of the enchantment group. As the chief of the 6th grade students, he has the right to manage all matters of this trial. Don't worry, after all, this area is a safe area. A 6th-year student with a cut head said frivolously, and the others responded without any sense of tension. It is common to be invaded by reals and virtuals in previous years, so we must not relax our vigilance in this trial. After all, this is also a kind of exercise for us. Hisagi Shuahei immediately sternly reprimanded. The members of the enchantment group saw that Hisagi Shuahei seemed to be angry, so they stood up straight and said in unison, "Kaido, understood. Go, be careful," Hisagi Shuahei said in a slow voice. Yes. These 6th-year students rushed to the edge of the barrier immediately after answering. They are all students who have studied in the Shinigami Academy for many years. At this moment, Lin Shang's team. "Miharu Taro, you idiot, Shu ran past you again." Hachikogawa looked at Shu who hadn't caught him again, and said a little annoyed. The simulated ghosts here are all the lowest level nascent ghosts, and they basically have no desire to attack. In most cases, they need to be chased and arrested instead. Sorry. I didn't expect it to be so fast. Miharu Taro said apologetically, rubbing the back of his head. At this moment, an explosion sounded from the side, and it turned out that Chu who had escaped just now had been killed by Lin Shang. Let's rush to the next location. Lin Shang put away the sealed state and said. TCH, if it wasn't for the influence of Miharu Taro just now, I would have killed it long ago. Feng Guchuan said a little unconvinced. Really? There's another one over there, I'll leave it to you. Lin Shang pointed to a dummy not far away. Looking in the direction Lin Shang was pointing at, there was really a dummy wandering there, and Feng Guchuan rushed over with the sealed state in hand without saying a word. Does it matter if he wants it? Are we going to help? Miharu Taro said worriedly. Aren't you angry when he said that to you just now? Lin Shang asked in surprise. After all, it was indeed because of me that I made that Shu run away. Miharu Taro said apologetically. This made Lin Shang look at him with admiration. There are not many people who can recognize their own shortcomings and accept them humbly. Suddenly, there was an explosion, but it wasn't from Feng Guchuan's side, but from another direction. Yo, your movements are a bit slow. Abarai Renji shouted to Lin Shang after killing a dummy, and then Kira Izuru and Hinamori Momo also chased after him. And Feng Guchuan, who was fighting with the simulator nearby, might have been affected by the explosion just now, causing his attention to be distracted, and the simulator who had been fighting with him for a long time immediately fled away. Looking at the simulation virtual that had already fled to the distance, Feng Guchuan said unwillingly while holding the sealed state. Seeing this scene, Lin Shang just smiled and didn't say anything mocking. He just walked over and said, let's go to the next location. Feng Guchuan looked up at Lin Shang and Miharu Taro beside him, and found that there was no sarcasm on their faces, but the more they were like this, the more he felt that he had gone too far. It seems that these things are really not easy to deal with. I got angry just now, Miharu Taro, don't take it to heart. Feng Guchuan said apologetically. No, I should be holding you back, and I will try my best to keep up with you. Sanchun Taro waved his hand quickly. While they were talking here, ripples were spreading on the edge of the enchantment. Through the looming enchantment, one can see that there is a huge black shadow approaching here. Chapter 71. The Enchantment Group. The Enchantment Group. Please answer if you receive it. At the assembly point, the 6th-year student named Qinglu shouted into the communicator on his neck. What's going on? Hisagi Shuahei asked as if he noticed something was wrong. It's a little strange, I can't contact the enchantment group from the very beginning. Qinglu said with some doubts. Could it be a malfunction of the communicator? Kanazawa said from the side. Probably not, I can't get in touch either. Hisagi Shuahei's face was a little ugly. Seeing that the trial was about to end, the enchantment team couldn't get in touch at this time. Suddenly, there was a loud bang, followed by screams. What happened? Hisagi Shuahei and others immediately looked in the direction of the sound. I saw a few students running towards them with terrified faces, and they were the ones who made the screams. As for the huge roar, it was made by a huge monster chasing after them. That's. Seeing the huge figure walking towards this side, the eyes of Kanazawa and the others widened. How is it possible? How could there be a giant void here, and it appeared without me noticing it? Hisagi Shuahei said solemnly while holding the sealed state. Logically speaking, it is impossible for a monster with huge reiatsu, such as the giant virtual, to approach here in such a subtle way. Could it be that this null can hide reiatsu? Hisagi Shuahei was full of doubts. Just when everyone was surprised by the appearance of the giant ghost, this giant ghost actually started to speed up, and rushed to the vicinity of those students in an instant, raised an extremely huge foot and stepped on it. Don't kill me. Amidst howling and howling, the huge soul stepped on it. After the giant shoe's feet left, there was only a bloody mess left in place, and the silhouettes of those students could still be seen faintly from the white clothes. Seeing this scene, Hisagi Shuahei immediately reacted, and issued an order to the crowd behind him. The guide group will block me here, and the other students flee here as soon as possible, the farther the better. Yes. Kanazawa, Qinglu and other 6 members of the guidance team responded immediately, but each of them was full of tension. The strength of Jujutsu is equivalent to that of Shinigami's low-level officers, and it is absolutely impossible for students like them who have not yet graduated to fight against them. But at the moment, I can't take care of that much anymore. After all, if they don't step up, the juniors behind may not even have a chance to escape. The group of students who heard the order also reacted, and immediately fled to the rear in panic. There were quite a few students who fell to the ground in fright on the way. This scene also made Lin Shang, Renji and others who were rushing to the meeting place puzzled. What's going on? Abarai Renji looked at the panic-stricken crowd and asked rather puzzled. Unfortunately, no one stopped to tell him what happened. It's the meeting place, Kira Izuru said, pointing to the thick smoke not far away. There must be some accident, you'd better stay away from here with the others. Lin Shang said calmly to the crowd, and then rushed towards the accident site. Hey Yunsheng, wait for me. Abarai Renji shouted at Lin Shang, and then followed. These two guys, Kira Izuru looked at the two people who were going away and didn't know what to say, and then said to Hinamori Momo and others, don't go there, Dao Zi, I'll go and see. We are teammates, how can I escape alone at this time? Hinamori Momo changed from his usual gentleness and said rather stubbornly. Okay then, Kira Izuru said with some astonishment, it was the first time he saw Hinamori Momo like this. Seeing the two figures gradually disappearing again, Hachikokawa and Maharudara looked at each other. Feng Guchuan cursed, and then chased after him. He actually wanted to escape with the crowd, but the arrogance in his bones did not allow him to do such a thing. In this way, only Miharu Taro was left on the spot. He looked at Lin Shang and others who were going away, and then at the crowd who were fleeing in panic. After thinking about it, he should not cause trouble to Lin Shang and the others, and followed the crowd, escaped from here. At this moment, the location of the assembly point. Hisagi Shuhei said to the crowd with blood on his face, I have asked for help from the Soul Society, as long as I persist, the reinforcements will come. Hisagi Shuhei, who just said this, suddenly opened his mouth and looked in another direction in horror, because there unexpectedly appeared a huge black shadow there. How could this happen? Kanazawa, who also saw this scene, was also shocked. Kanazawa, be careful behind you. Suddenly, Qinglu shouted. Hearing Qinglu's cry, Kanazawa woke up from the shock, but at this moment there was already a strong wind howling towards him. Boom! Kanazawa's back was hit hard, and it was the giant hollow that appeared first that attacked her. How dare you put Shiezi? Seeing Shiezi's blood spilled into the sky, Qinglu immediately rushed out angrily. Stop, Qinglu! Hisagi Shuhei shouted immediately. But it's a pity that Qinglu, who was dazzled by anger, could no longer listen to other people's advice. Boom! There was a huge roar, and Qinglu's figure that had just rushed out was hit on the ground by the giant virtual hammer. What? At this time, there were several screams from another direction, and the newly appeared giant void killed the other four members of the leading group in just a few hits. Hateful, Hisagi Shuhei looked at this scene and could only hold the sealed stake tightly in his hands, so as to give him a sense of security. Call out. After finishing the Qinglu, the giant void that appeared earlier used his sharp forelimbs to attack Hisagi Shuhei at an extremely fast speed. Boring. With a bang, Hisagi Shuhei's sealed state resisted the blow with difficulty, but the claws of another giant ghost also attacked him from another direction. At this extremely dangerous moment, Hisagi Shuhei withdrew the power on the sealed state, and used the momentum to escape from the gap between the two attacks. Tick. Although Hisagi Shuhei, who escaped the blow by chance, saved his life, a long and narrow wound was cut on his left side, and blood was dripping continuously. Eyes, I can't see the front clearly. Hisagi Shuhei said, panting heavily, looking at the gradually blurred vision ahead. The blow just now seemed to have injured his left eye. But the two giant ghosts continued to attack him without stopping, no matter how badly he was injured. It's over. Hisagi Shuhei looked at the sharp claw that struck again with a face full of despair. At this moment, several figures passed by him, and one of them helped him stop the attack in front of him. It was really dangerous just now, said Lin Shang, who stood in front of Hisagi Shuhei, but from his expression with his back turned to Hisagi, there was no hint of danger at all. Hisagi Shuhei was a little surprised when he saw who it was. Sorry. For the sake of saving you, please forgive us for our private actions. Abarai Renji interrupted Hisagi Shuhei's surprise. Then, without waiting for Hisagi Shuhei's reply, Abarai Renji raised his hands together with Kira Izuru and Hinamori Momo and started chanting. King's Lander, the mask of flesh and blood, Yantian, fluttering wings, and the name of human beings. Burning heat and strife, across the sea to the south, step forward. 31 of Hado, Red Cannon. As the chanting ended, Aburai Renji, Kira Iziru, and Hinamori Momo unleashed a powerful flame together. Boom! The red flame exploded on the body of the giant Shu, and set off a burst of thick smoke. Did you win? Aburai Renji looked at the giant void covered by thick smoke, and said with some uncertainty. Roar! A roar came from the smoke. It seemed to answer his question, but it was accompanied by an extremely sharp forelimb. Not good. Lin Shang, who noticed this scene, immediately used Shunpo to flash to Aburai Renji's side and pushed him out. Brush. The incomparably sharp forelimbs of the giant Shu brushed against them, and sliced on the building beside them like cutting tofu. Thank you, Yunsheng. Aburai Renji said with lingering fear as he looked at the building that was cut in half. You take Hisagi Shuahei to evacuate first, leave this to me. Lin Shang said to Aburai Renji in a deep voice. Somehow these giant voids are not intelligent. Thinking about it this way, since Eisen came to Hueco Mundo, it seems that there has been a lot of ignorance. Could it be related to Arrancar? Lin Shang analyzed the differences in the virtual reality in front of him. You deal with them alone. That's too dangerous. Aburai Renji shook his head and refused. Renji, your presence here will only affect my battle. Lin Shang said rather solemnly, while an amazing reiatsu emanated from his body. At this moment, he is ready to clear these voids before Eisen arrives, but Renji and others are here, and they are likely to be affected by their battle. Okay. Aburai Renji looked at Lin Shang who was exuding amazing reiatsu, and compromised helplessly. As Aburai Renji and others moved away from this battle area, Lin Shang no longer used Shunpo to evade the attacks of these two ghosts. I saw him raise one hand, pointing at the two giant ghosts and began to chant. Beast bones scattered everywhere. Spires. Red crystals. Steel wheels. What moves is the wind, what is still is the sky, and the sound of spears striking each other resounds through the empty city. Hados 63, Fiery Lightning Howl. As the chanting ended, a golden thunderbolt shot out from Lin Shang's hand. Boom! Endless thunder and lightning flickered here, and the soaring flames seemed to illuminate the dark sky. This is Hinamori Momo, who had just left the battle area, stopped first and looked behind him, which also made everyone stop. Could it be from Yunsheng? Aburai Renji looked at the area emitting endless electric light and said, no wonder Yunsheng told them to evacuate immediately. This is the power of Fiery Lightning Howl, that's a Kido over 60. Kira Iziru said in shock. He has the best Kido talent among several people, so he has already begun to slightly involve more advanced Kido, so he can accurately judge this power at this moment. Is this from Dongfang Yunsheng? Or a Kido over 60? Are you kidding me? Feng Guchuan, who had just arrived here, said in disbelief when he heard what Kira and the others said. He has always been unconvinced by Lin Shang, but now he subconsciously doesn't believe it. Ahem, it's terrible, just one blow killed both of the giants. Hisagi Shuahei, who was supported by Aburai Renji, said with a sigh of relief after feeling that the two-headed reiatsu disappeared. Since Zudu has been killed, let's wait for Yunsheng here. Aburai Renji said with lingering fear, if it wasn't for Yunsheng just now, his body might be completely cold by now. Of course Kira and the others have no objection. At this moment, they all feel a sense of release in their hearts. After all, it is the first time they face the real void, and they are somewhat uncertain. At this moment, the barrier around them seemed a little unstable. After the ripples began to spread to the surroundings, a crack was forcibly torn open on the barrier, and another giant ghost appeared in front of their eyes. How could it be possible? Yet another giant monster came. Hisagi Shuahei said with a pale face. It is not easy to see a giant ghost in this world, but now there are 3 in a row. But the next scene was even more exaggerated, and it also made them understand what real despair is. I saw more and more cracks being torn open on the barrier, and a giant ghost appeared in each crack, and soon more than 20 giant ghosts appeared here. Is this the real hollow? Looking at these terrifying monsters, Feng Guchuan's hand holding the sealed state was trembling. Aburai Renji said unwillingly while holding the sealed state, they couldn't deal with a giant head combined, but now there are so many. Kira Iziru and Hinamori Momo also stared at this scene with wide eyes at this moment, they were even too terrified to speak. Just when everyone was in despair, a frivolous voice came from behind them. "Hey, you entertained so many guests again while I was away." Hearing this voice, Renji and the others looked back in surprise, only to see Lin Shang, who was carrying the sealed state, standing behind them at the moment. "It's Dongfang classmate," Hinamori Momo said happily, as if grasping at a straw. But then she seemed to think of something, and her expression darkened again. After all, there are so many giant ghosts here, and it is difficult to turn the tide of the battle with Dongfang alone. Others also thought of this at the same time, and Abarai Renji stood up and said, "Yun Shang, you shouldn't have chased here. Yes, even if you can send out more than 60 Kido, with so many giant voids, the consumption speed of the light Reiatsu can't keep up." Kira Izuru also said sadly. Kido is a skill that is mainly cast based on one's own Reiatsu. Although it is powerful, it consumes a terrifying number of spirits. The higher the level of Kido, the more spirits it needs. I don't remember telling you that Kido who can send more than 60 is my real strength. Lin Shang said calmly across them. Dongfang Yunsheng, I admit that you are very powerful, but at a time like this, stop bragging and trying to be brave. Feng Guchuan said with some frustration. It seemed that he was completely desperate. Although Abarai Renji and others felt that Lin Shang would not be able to lie to them at this time, they did not believe that Lin Shang could deal with so many giant voids. But what Lin Shang did next shocked them, and they saw a burst of brilliant white light from the sealed state held by Lin Shang. Shaojun 9 Heavens, Qingying. With the disappearance of the white light, the sealed state in Lin Shang's hand has changed into an ancient Chinese sword. This sword is 2 feet 1 inch long. The body of the sword seems to be cast from black iron. The hilt is a cyan dragon carving, which looks simple and majestic. The blade is extremely sharp and emits a faint cold light. He actually Shikai. Kira Izuru said in shock. Am I dreaming? This guy Yunsheng entered school with us, right? Abarai Renji asked them in disbelief. I remember back then, Dongfang still got 0 points in the chopping technique. Hinamori Momo replied with certainty, saying that he was not dreaming. As Dongfang Yunsheng, what a monster, Hisagi murmured looking at the figure with his back to them. You must know that he had to take the exam twice before entering the Shenyang Academy of Spiritual Art, and after 6 years of study, he became the chief of the 6th class of students, but he still has not mastered Shikai so far. And this guy named Dongfang Yunsheng must have been in school for less than a year, right? Thinking of this, Hisagi Shuahei suddenly felt tired. Just when they were shocked here, those giant ghosts rushed up without the slightest fear. At this moment, their devouring instinct thought that there was a guy in front of them who was more mellow. Just use you guys to test my strength. Lin Shang rushed forward without hesitation holding Qingying. Qingying is a name Lin Shang gave to her after she was approved by Zanpakuto. Let me emphasize that Qingying is a girl. In Lin Shang's Zanpakuto, in addition to Qingying, there are 4 unknown figures that are not opened. Before this, Lin Shang had analyzed whether each figure represented a form of his Zanpakuto. If they are all turned on, does that mean Bankai? Of course, this was just his guess. Before that, he had to at least make the 4 figures appear. In the battlefield, Lin Shang, displaying the power of Shikai at this moment, already has the upper hand in the process of fighting these giant virtuals. Brush. A flash of cold light flashed across, and a giant shoe's mask was split in half by Lin Shang and fell off. Afterwards, the giant shoe with a huge body disappeared into the void with a roar. Only a group of Lingxi was facing Lin Shang. Fly away. It's a waste of time to fight like this. After all, Lin Shang's Shikai strength is immature at the moment, so if he continues to fight like this, he will definitely be shown off by Eisen and others. Thinking of this, Lin Shang raised the blue shadow dragon sword in his hand, and put on a sword dancing pose. Blue sword flower flying. Immediately, a series of sharp sword chi, with Lin Shang as the center, presented a fan and shot towards the giants in front of them. Boom, boom, boom. The sword energy flying all over the sky not only looks so good looking, but also has amazing power. No matter it is a giant ghost or a building, it is blown apart one after another. So strong. Feng Guchuan said subconsciously in the rear. Somehow, his dissatisfaction with Lin Shang seemed to have disappeared at the moment. This may be the reason why the gap is too large. If everyone is at a similar level, there must be fierce competition between them. But if one of them has far surpassed this level, then others will not have the intention to compete with him, but will use it as an example, or even worship it. Feng Guchuan is like this at the moment. No matter whether he is a nobleman or a commoner, nothing can hide Lin Shang's incomparable talent. What a wonderful scene. At this time, a gentle voice came from behind them. Everyone looked back in shock. Who was it? They didn't notice it at all. It's just that they were delighted and excited at this sight, because they were two figures in white Haori. They were the captain of the 5th Division, Eisen Sosuke, and the captain of the 3rd Division, Ichimaru Jin. Captain Eisen, and Captain Ichimaru Jin, you two came to support in person. Hisagi Shuahei said in surprise. Originally, he had always been dissatisfied with why the Soul Society's support was so slow, but now seeing that the two captains came to help in person, the dissatisfaction in his heart disappeared, and all that was left was admiration. You guys did a great job, be surprised, it's all right now. Eisen said softly, putting his hand on Hinamori Momo's head. Hinamori Momo looked at this gentle man, and something seemed to touch him in his heart. But because Eisen and others didn't show their great strength, and they didn't have the mentality of being rescued from despair, this touch quickly dissipated. Lin Shang, who had just landed, looked at Eisen and Ichimaru Jin who appeared here, and pretended to be dissatisfied and said, "Is it the reinforcements from the Soul Society? You guys are a bit late. I have already killed those giant ghosts just now." Quote. Don't be rude, these two are Captain Eisen of Division 5 and Captain Ichimaru Jin of Division 3. Hisagi Shuahei immediately scolded, but he actually wanted to protect Lin Shang. After all, offending the captain is nothing good thing. It turned out to be Captain Eisen and Captain Ichimaru Jin. Please forgive my rudeness just now. Lin Shang immediately pretended to have suddenly realized, and bowed his head to admit his mistake without hesitation. Haha, it's okay, if I had your talent back then, I would have been even more arrogant than you. Eisen waved his hand with a smile and said, signaling Lin Shang not to be so restrained. Captain Eisen is really a gentle person. Hinamori Momo felt emotional watching this scene. Eisen first returned a polite smile to Hinamori Momo, and then asked everyone. By the way, I don't know your names yet, is it convenient to tell me? When the captain-level figures asked their names, everyone was of course willing to tell them. After all, this was considered to be in the sight of the big men to some extent. After everyone reported their names one by one, Ichimaru Jin standing behind Eisen, his smiling eyes seemed to be more curved. Hinamori Momo. What a nice name. Eisen first praised, and then invited everyone. Will you come to our 5th team after graduation? Really? Can we join your 5th team too? That would be great. Hinamori Momo said with a blushing little face. Obviously, even if Lin Shang changes the course of events, she still has a tendency to fall under Eisen's gentle offensive. Kira Iziru is also excited at the moment, to be invited to join Gotei 13 without graduating, that is his dream. Yun Sheng, what do you say? Abarai Renji turned around and asked Lin Shang who was beside him. Captain Eisen, I'm afraid I won't be able to go to your 5th team, because before that, I have already agreed to the 11th team, and the 1st team has also sent me an invitation. Lin Shang said very regretfully. Eisen pushed his eyes and didn't know what he was thinking, and then said in a gentle tone, really, that's such a pity. If you change your mind later, the door of our 5th squad is open to you at any time. Thank you so much, Captain Eisen. Lin Shang said pretending to be grateful. If he didn't know Eisen's true face, even he would be infected by Eisen's charisma. On the other hand, it also indirectly shows the horror of Eisen. This is a guy who is performing 2 lives at the same time. Even the closest people sometimes cannot guess what is in his heart. In the end, Hinamori Momo, Kira Iziru and Abarai Renji accepted Eisen's invitation. In fact, Abarai Renji wanted to go to the 11th team with Lin Shang. But there is no way, the 11th squad didn't invite him, and whether he rushed there like this is another matter. After all, the 11th squad is a combat force, and the review is still very strict. As for Hisagi Shuahei, Eisen didn't invite him at the beginning, because he had agreed to the invitation of Team 9 Captain Tusen Kanami long before that. And the young man standing aside, that is, Feng Guchuan, Eisen immediately lost interest after hearing his surname. On the one hand, Feng Guchuan can't go anywhere except the second team. Not useful. Fortunately, Feng Furukawa didn't know what Eisen was thinking that he didn't even have the qualifications to be a pawn. Isn't it even more pathetic? After dealing with the injuries briefly, Hisagi Shuhei summoned the surviving students to prepare to return to the Soul Society. Although most of the incident was aimed at them at the beginning, some students were still injured. Because while attracting Shu's attention on their side, there was still a giant void that dived to the other side of the city. It is said that Captain Eisen personally rescued these students in the end, but the giant void still caused dozens of casualties, including Lin Shang and their teammate Miharu Taro. After hearing about this incident, Lin Shang couldn't help but wonder whether this was an Easter egg that Eisen forcibly opened when he found out that the script didn't go according to his plan. The loss of the 6th-year students who led this trial was even worse. First, the enchantment group that followed was basically wiped out, and then only Hisagi Shuhei and Kanazawa were left in the leading group. His condition is not very good, and he needs to be sent to Soul Society for emergency treatment. In front of the crossing gate, seeing stretchers covered with white cloths being carried into the world transmitting gate, everyone looked heavy. It's really dangerous this time, Aburai Renji said solemnly watching this scene. If it wasn't for Yunsheng, I'm afraid we would be on these stretchers right now. Kira Izuru said with lingering fear. Hinamori Momo and Feng Guchuan's faces were not very good, especially after Feng Guchuan learned about Miharu Taro's situation. Not long after, everyone returned to the square of Maoyang Academy of Spiritual Art, and everyone felt a sense of survival after the catastrophe. I will truthfully report the situation of this trial to the Academy. I think everyone is not in a good mood right now, so I won't say any more. Let's all go back and have a good rest. Let's disband. Hisagi Shuhei stood in front of the crowd, issue the final order for this trial. It's finally over, I'm going to take a hot bath to relax. Yunsheng, Kira, are you going? Aburai Renji stretched and said. I won't go, you go. Lin Shang refused, and he planned to go back and study his own shikai. Alright then. After hearing Lin Shang's reply, Aburai Renji called Kira to leave together. This time, I really want to thank Dongfang classmate. Hinamori Momo said softly. Aren't we all friends? Don't be so polite to each other. Lin Shang said casually, waving his hands. Hinamori Momo smiled, then said goodbye to Lin Shang and returned to his residence. Looking at Hinamori Momo in the distance, Lin Shang suddenly remembered the story of a white-haired boy. Looks like it's time to visit Hinamori Momo. Thinking of this, Lin Shang also planned to leave, but a short black-haired boy stopped him. It was Feng Guchuan who hadn't left yet. Dongfang Yunsheng. Feng Guchuan walked over and said. Huh. Lin Shang stopped and looked at him with some doubts. Thank you this time, but I will try my best to catch up with you. Feng Guchuan's voice was relatively low in the first half of the sentence, but the second half of the sentence was shouted. I'm afraid it will be difficult. Lin Shang smiled, and then walked away. Forget this guy, I don't know how to tell my aunt when I go back. Feng Guchuan suddenly became distressed. Not long after this incident, considering Dongfang Yunsheng's strength and achievements, the senior management of the college made an exception and allowed him to graduate together with the 6th batch of students who were about to graduate this time. After a grand graduation ceremony, those from the Gote 13, and others like the Kido congregation, set up admissions outside the academy. I didn't expect to graduate so soon. Lin Shang looked back at the main entrance of the inner courtyard behind him and said with emotion. Dongfang Yunsheng. At this moment, a bold voice came. After seeing who was coming, Lin Shang responded with a smile, so it's Yizhao and Gong's relatives. I've heard about your kids' deeds, it seems that my vision is still good. Madarame Makaku said with a big smile. Tianlai Miyagawa invites him a lot in the academy, and you can still laugh. Iyasagawa Yumichika said from the side. That old boy Tianlai Miyagawa, I already knew that he is not a good bird, I will go find him now. Madarame Makaku heard this, and immediately wanted to go to Tianlai Miyagawa angrily. Fortunately, Lin Shang stopped him, and even defended him. Teacher Tianlai was very kind to me when I was in the academy, and I didn't agree to his invitation. In fact, just before graduation, Tianlai Miyagawa talked to him many times, nothing more than inviting him to join the first team, but it's better not to mention this kind of thing to Madarame Makaku and the others. Rejected. Hearing this, Madarame Makaku stopped being irritable and stopped looking for Tionlai Miyagawa. Then you want to come to our 11th team. This time we came specially for you. Iyasagawa Yumachika asked. Under the expectant eyes of the two, Lin Shang said with a smile, "Of course, I was the first to promise you. I knew you boy wouldn't disappoint me." Madarame Makaku patted Lin Shang's shoulder and said, but his expression was a bit wrong, as if he was excited. "This guy, Yijiao, doesn't fight with me every day, does he?" Looking at Madarame Makaku's evil expression, Lin Shang couldn't help thinking. After packing up his luggage, Lin Shang left with Madarame Makaku and others. Next, he will start his real Shinigami career. Hawako Mundo, Void Knight Palace. The previous ruins have long since disappeared, but towering buildings have appeared on the spot. The huge palace rising from the ground, the magnificent palace walls, and the white zenith, this is the newly built Zide Palace. At this time, a fake Arrancar with an orange explosive head stood on the palace wall, pointed to a crack not far away and said, "You guys, go and repair it over there." "Yes, Lord Gangton Bean." Several Arrancar soldiers responded immediately. This person is the 7th Espada Gangton Bane, who is currently in charge of the construction of the Void Knight Palace. "Really, if Lord Eisen sees these questions, I will definitely kill you," Gang Tenbin said with a murderous look on his face. This made the few Arrancar soldiers who were repairing the wall tense. They were all at the weak level in front of Arrancar, and even if they were killed, no one would stand up for them. "Yo, what a majesty. It scared us all." Suddenly, a middle-aged Uncle Arrancar came over, and it was the 3rd Espada de Ludoni. "Who am I? It turns out to be Dorudoni," Gang Tenbin said after seeing the person coming. "What? I'm not welcome." Dorudoni crossed Gang Tenbin and walked to the palace wall parapet and said, "Why don't you accompany Lord Eisen? Why did you come to my place?" Gang Tenbin said with a gloomy face. Although he didn't reply directly, judging from his attitude, I'm afraid it's not just that he doesn't welcome Dorudoni. In fact, since the disappearance of Gagamel and Loic, Dorudoni has begun to call himself the leader of Espada. Originally, this was nothing, but what annoyed Gang Tenbin the most was that this guy often pointed fingers at him. If Lord Eisen was not still around, he would have thought that he was building a palace for Dorudoni. "It's enough for Eisen-sama to be accompanied by Taruti, I'll come out to get some air." Dorudoni mentioned it casually, and then asked in an extremely arrogant tone, "How is the construction progress of the palace? If there is a slight mistake, I will not forgive you. I will report directly to Master Eisen about the construction of the palace, without your asking." Gang Tenbin couldn't help but replied, he was the one who bothered Dorudoni the most. Gang Tenbin, who thought that this would usher in a thunderous counterattack by Dorudoni, suddenly found that Dorudoni, who had always been arrogant and complacent, did not argue with him this time. Looking at Dorudoni with a serious face, Gang Tenbin followed his line of sight and looked towards the periphery of Zide Palace. All I could see was yellow sand all over the sky, nothing changed from usual. "What's the matter with you guy? Did you get scared when you learned that I was going to report to Lord Eisen?" Gang Tenbin said sarcastically. "Idiot, haven't you noticed that a powerful Reiatsu is approaching the Void Knight Palace?" Dorudoni cursed suddenly as if his thoughts were interrupted by Gang Tenbin. The powerful Reiatsu. Gang Tenbin was startled, and looked at the yellow sand in the distance again. This time, he finally saw more than a dozen figures approaching in the endless yellow sand. Just when Tenembin was trying to see these figures clearly, he seemed to feel his soul tremble, and several suffocating huge Reiatsu pressed towards them. "What a scary Reiatsu, who are they?" Dorudoni said while holding on to the railing profusely. Before Arrancar, he was Manos Grande of Jillian level. After Arrancar, Reiatsu's strength was only at the peak level of Ijuka's. Among the figures approaching, 6 Reiatsu were far above him, and 3 Reiatsu were very close to him. After feeling the strength of the Comer, Dorudoni immediately shouted in panic, "Quickly report to Master Eisen." But unfortunately, no one responded to his order. This made Dorudoni feel very strange, and he looked behind him suspiciously. Those ordinary Arrancar soldiers were already prostrate on the ground at this moment, their faces pressed tightly against the ground, and it was very difficult for them to even breathe, let alone respond to his orders. Looking at Gangton Burn, who also belonged to Espada, was also oppressed to half kneel on the ground, panting violently. This scene actually didn't just happen to them, it was a huge sense of oppression covering the entire Zai Palace. No matter where you are in the Zai Palace, you will be enveloped by this huge Reiatsu. At this moment, apart from Deludoni, who can barely move, there are only the three figures of Baragan, the former king of Hueco Mundo, and the main hall of Zai Palace. Oh, this is a demonstration to Captain Eisen. Ichimaru Jin looked at Tsuruti, who was kneeling on the ground, and said with a smile. No, they are showing me their value. The figure sitting on the main seat, that is, Eisen, said calmly. Oh, then, you will soon have a group of stronger subordinates. Ichimaru Jin said thoughtfully. However, we still need to give our new friends a little gift, so that they know who is the master here. As Eisen got up, a more terrifying Reiatsu rose from here instantly, and forcibly blasted the Reiatsu that permeated the sky above Zai Palace. Looking at the Zai Palace that was already enveloped by another huge wave of Reiatsu, Lin Shang and others who had just arrived at the periphery of the Zai Palace withdrew their strength one after another. This is the Reiatsu named Eisen. Zael Aporo was shocked. Stark, Ulquiorra, Nello, Hurley Bell, and their subordinates all looked bad. Although Lin Shang had already mentioned that Eisen is not an ordinary person before coming here, they still underestimated Eisen's strength. Simply this Reiatsu has no desire to attack, and was quickly taken back after defeating their Reiatsu. Don't worry, after you are all Arrancarized, your strength will have a considerable leap forward, and you may not be able to compete with this force. Lin Shang said calmly. He'd known this was going to be the case, but it was necessary to do it, feeling the gap between the two sides would give them motivation and also show Eisen the value of others like him. When they arrived at the gate of Zai Palace, Lin Shang and others met Ichimaru Jin and Tusen Kanami, who escorted them. There are a lot of people. Ichimaru Jin said with a smile as he swept them around, especially when he looked at Lin Shang. Master Eisen has been waiting in the Zai Palace for a long time, everyone, come with me. Tusen Kanami raised his hand as a gesture, and then turned and walked towards the interior of the Zai Palace. Stark, Nailu and others all looked at Lin Shang, as if asking if they really want to enter. Lin gave them a smile back, and followed them calmly. He decided that Eisen would not attack them if he didn't get what he needed. But one thing to watch out for is Eisen showing Kyoka Suigetsu to them. Zai Palace, Throne Hall. When Lin Shang and others entered here, the first thing they saw was a calm and relaxed man on the throne. Master Eisen. Lin Shang greeted with a smile. Eisen, who was sitting on the throne, first glanced at Ulquiorra and the others, and then said calmly, Mr. Lin, you really did not disappoint me. Then, should Master Eisen also fulfill his promise, let us see that mysterious treasure. Lin Shang said with a look of eagerness. In fact, although he also had some expectations for Hogyoku, he didn't show such urgency. The real urgency was Zael Aporo behind him. Disrespectful, how dare you talk to Master Eisen like that? Tusen Kanami immediately stood up and yelled, and put his hand on the handle of the knife. Following Tusen Kanami's reprimand and movements, Stark and the others standing behind Lin Shang also glared at him, and there was a fierce aura exuding between the two sides, which immediately made the atmosphere here begin to dignify. Looking sideways at Tusen Kanami, Lin Shang smiled contemptuously, and then said to Eisen, who was always calm on the throne, Master Eisen, are you going to break your promise? Yes, that's not necessary, I did agree to Mr. Lin's matter. Eisen said flatly to Tusen Kanami, as if he didn't care about Stark and others' deterrence at all. Yes, Master Eisen, Tusen Kanami responded, and then took his hand off the handle. Seeing that the other party seemed to take a step back, Stark, Hurley Bell and others also withdrew their momentum after seeing this. Go to the lab, I also want to see how Lin Shang completely Arrancarized Shu. Eisen got up and said, he meant to see the process of Arrancar with his own eyes, and probably wanted to test whether Lin Shang was right lying to him. Sure enough, Eisen is not easy to fool. Fortunately, I was prepared. Lin Shang thought to himself. When he came here, he thought that with Eisen's IQ, he would never be fooled by him casually, so he must have good results to gain the trust of the other party. So Lin Shang combined his previous experimental experience with Zail Aporo, and all the information about Hogyoku and Arrancar in his previous life, plus some of his own Arrancarization process, so that he sorted out a result that was enough to impress Eisen. Everyone soon followed Eisen to the new laboratory of the Void Palace. In fact, a more magnificent palace was built on the original site of Shielaporo's laboratory. But this renovation has indeed improved the environment here a lot, at least it looks a lot taller than before. As everyone entered this palace-like laboratory, Zail Aporo showed a surprised expression. Because there are all kinds of unknown machinery and equipment here, although I still don't understand their principles and functions, but just a cursory look, I know that all of them are high-precision spiritual equipment. Compared to the previous perfection, isn't it pretty good here? Zail Aporo, Eisen said with his back to everyone. It seems that Lin Shang doesn't need an introduction at all, he knows which one is Zail Aporo. It is indeed much better than my original laboratory, and these devices don't seem to be so simple. I guess these are not Hueco Mundos. Zail Aporo said while stroking one of the devices with patterns. Of course, these are gifts from the Soul Society. Eisen said calmly, but he didn't explain how these devices got Hueco Mundo. Master Eisen, you have really worked hard for us. Lin Shang looked at Zail Aporo, who could no longer put down these devices, and said to Eisen with a smile. Don't take it to heart, after all, it's all for our common ambition. Eisen replied flatly, wondering if he really understood Lin Shang's meaning. At this time, Baragan, who was in another palace of the Void Knight Palace, also came to the laboratory. In fact, he didn't want to come, but because of Arrancar's power, he couldn't sit still. When Baragan walked into the laboratory, he first looked at Lin Shang, who had made him feel humiliated, and then at Eisen, who made him feel even more humiliated now. There seemed to be a tinge of red in those dark pupils. But he still walked to Eisen's side, and bowed and said, Lord Eisen. Hearing Baragan's hoarse voice, Eisen didn't even turn his head, but simply replied, yeah. Then he left Baragan there, which made Baragan feel even more humiliated, but after all, his strength is not as good as others, so he can only endure in silence at the moment. Seeing this Baragan, Hurley Bell and Sun Sun were very surprised. Is this still the great emperor who used to be so glorious? Is this still the king of Hueco Mundo who wants to bring them to their knees? Just when everyone was amazed at the majestic king of Hueco Mundo's submission, Eisen told Tusen Kanami who was standing beside him, yes, bring them in. Quote. Yes, Master Eisen. Hearing Eisen's order, Tusen Kanami immediately turned around and walked out. Not long after, a group of monsters without Arrancar followed him in. Among them were powerful monsters, giant monsters, and Manos Grande of Jillian and Ijuka's level. These people stood in a row respectfully, and seemed to understand what was going to happen next. Most of them were excited, but there were also some nervous enough to tremble. Mr. Lin, I will leave this place to you and Zail Aporo. Eisen raised his hand as a gesture. Hearing this, Lin Shang first stepped forward to look at the empty people standing in a row, and then turned his gaze to Eisen. He was waiting for Eisen's next move. As if he understood Lin Shang's meaning, Eisen stopped hiding and took out a crystal gemstone emitting blue-black light from his bosom. Could this be it? Zail Aporo, who was standing aside, looked at this gemstone emitting blue-black light with some obsession. Others such as Stark, Ulquiorra, and even Baragan looked at this gem in amazement. They really couldn't figure out that such a small stone could make Shu break through the boundaries and gain the power of Shinigami. Yes, this is a prop that can break the boundary between virtual and Shinigami, and it is also a mysterious substance created by me. I call it Hogyoku. Eisen held Hogyoku in his hand and introduced it to everyone. Lin Shang looked at this blue-black gemstone with a solemn face. Ever since Eisen took it out, he felt that the spirits here had become active. What surprised him the most was that the spirits in the vast area centered on Zai Palace seemed to be gathering here. I believe that other people can also feel this, but they are definitely not as subtle as Lin Shang, because just standing near Hogyoku, he also absorbs these gathered spirit particles. Next, I will give you the right to use Hogyoku. I hope you will not disappoint me, Mr. Lin. Eisen held up Hogyoku in his hand and handed it to Lin Shang. Lin Shang took the blue-black gem carefully, and at the moment he held Hogyoku, a strong will seemed to be connecting with him. It's incredible. Lin Shang exclaimed while holding Hogyoku. The power of Hogyoku was far stronger than he imagined. It seems that Mr. Lin has also felt the will of Hogyoku. Eisen said meaningfully, only those who have really touched Hogyoku can perceive its incredible power. But this Hogyoku, I always feel like a half-finished product. Lin Shang felt the power of Hogyoku and said thoughtfully. Oh. Eisen's always calm face finally showed a hint of surprise after hearing Lin Shang's words. Mr. Lin actually discovered this in such a short period of time. It seems that I still underestimated your talent far before. Eisen said with emotion. You must know that he was also a long time after making Hogyoku. The argument only discovered this problem. So now Lin Shang's performance really surprised him, and made him have to re-examine the value of Lin Shang and others. From the moment I came into contact with Hogyoku, I realized that its power seemed to be far more than what it appeared to be, but after further exploration of this power, it seemed to be obscure in some aspects, as if the machine was not running smoothly. That's why I asked this question, Lin Shang said in a half-true way. In fact, although he also sensed some, it was not enough to prove this point. What really made him so sure was the memory of watching anime in his previous life. That's right. Hogyoku's power is indeed much more than that, it's just a half-finished product. Eisen said frankly. This suddenly surprised Zale Aporo and others. The props that break the boundary between virtual and Shinigami are just a half-finished product. Then, can this semi-finished product still enable us to Arrancarize? At this moment, Ulquiorra suddenly asked what everyone was concerned about. If you can't Arrancarize them, then there's no need to work with Eisen. Are you Ulquiorra? Eisen did not answer this question first, but confirmed his identity. But Ulquiorra didn't say anything, just looked at him blankly, and Eisen had to take it as his acquiescence. Actually, there are two Hogyoku. As long as these two are fused, it will become a complete Hogyoku, but the other semi-finished Hogyoku has been hidden by a cunning Shinigami, so it is temporarily unobtainable. Eisen looked calm, explained. Although he couldn't get another Hogyoku for the time being, there was no sense of loss on his expression. This. Zale Aporo looked at the Hogyoku in Lin Shang's hand, and didn't know what to say. At this time, Lin Shang showed a smile and said, if I'm not wrong, even this semi-finished Hogyoku can still transform the virtual Arrancar, right? Not bad. The corners of Eisen's mouth turned up slightly. This is the power of Hogyoku, even a semi-finished product can do many incredible things. Hearing the conversation between Lin Shang and Eisen, Zale Aporo breathed a sigh of relief. He didn't want to give up such a good laboratory. In that case, let me try it next. Lin Shang said while holding Hogyoku. Looks like Mr. Lin can't wait, so let's wait and see. Eisen raised his hand to indicate that Lin Shang can start. Everyone's eyes focused on Lin Shang. Everyone wanted to see if this so-called Hogyoku was really so magical, and Eisen and others also wanted to know if Lin Shang was lying to them. I saw Lin Shang walking in front of the first head first. The level of this head is only the level of the strong head, it seems to be just right for practicing. In this feeling of unease, Lin Shang opened his palm, and the Hogyoku in his hand suddenly floated into midair, emitting a more brilliant blue-black light. Recalling the various processes of Arrancar and the experience summed up during this period of time in his mind, Lin Shang activated the power of Hogyoku, and a ray of light gradually covered the powerful shoe in front of him. With the shroud of Hogyoku's light, this powerful virtual body began to shrink, and began to transform into a human body. Suddenly, bang! The shrinking head actually exploded on the spot, and the whole body turned into a burst of smoke particles and dissipated here. Failed? Stark asked lazily, rubbing the back of his head. It seems that it didn't go as smoothly as expected. Hurley Bell's cold voice sounded. It should be that the power of Hogyoku has not yet been mastered. It is normal to fail a few times in the experiment. Zale Aporo explained on the side. Eisen's expression didn't fluctuate at all. He watched Lin Shang walk towards the next head blankly, and he didn't know what he was thinking. The second head is still at the level of a strong head, but this head seems to be a little panicked, but he dare not run away, not even move his feet. In the end, Lin Shang did not live up to his expectations. After he transformed into a human body, the process of breaking the mask made him return to the embrace of Hawako Mundo's mother. The 2 consecutive failures did not make Lin Shang lose confidence. He did not stop, and continued to walk in front of the 3rd Gyeongleksu. At this moment, Ru Sunsun and the others were already a little nervous, and Nilu also covered her eyes. She wasn't nervous, but she just couldn't bear to watch it any longer. The good thing is that this 3rd powerful head finally did not return to heaven and earth like the first 2 heads, but the level of Arrancar still did not meet expectations, and it was only slightly stronger than the Arrancar created by Eisen before. It seems that there is no need to continue. Tusen Kanami, who was standing beside Eisen, said in a cold voice. Although he can't see the situation, he can sense the Reiatsu on the head. I think the fun has just begun. Ichimaru Jin, who was also standing next to Eisen, said with a smile. His point of view was just the opposite of Tusen Kanami's. At this time, Eisen has changed from his previous expressionless face to a smile. It seems that he has the same idea as Ichimaru Jin. Sure enough, as Eisen and Ichimaru Jin expected, the first real Arrancar was born. Although 1/5 of this Arrancar's mask is still unbreakable, its strength has been substantially improved. Most importantly, he has a human face and Shinigami's Zanpakuto, which means that he already has a part of Shinigami's abilities. Of course, Returning Blade is an ability only possessed by high-level Manos Grande, and this Gyeongleksu is obviously unable to use this ability. The level of Arrancar can only go so far. If you want to achieve complete Arrancarization, you must have the power of the full version of Hogyoku. Lin Shang turned around and explained to everyone. Don't underestimate the process of Arrancarization. Although it seems that he just walked around with Hogyoku, it is not that simple. If Lin Shang were to make an analogy, it would be a bit like carving. Shu is the original stone, and Arrancar is a handicraft. During this carving process, he can't leak the original spirit seeds, and can't squeeze the spirit seeds beyond the upper limit, especially when breaking the mask on the face. He must be careful. If there is a slight deviation, it will make the spirit seeds the body of the original stone exploded. Of course, this may also be related to the fact that Lin Shang has just started. I believe that after proficiency, the success rate will also increase a lot. Looking at the success of Arrancar in front of him, Eisen seemed to be looking at a handicraft. After admiring it, he said to Lin Shang, "Although I can't complete Arrancar, Mr. Lin still has a lot to contribute. It's all thanks to Master Eisen's Hogyoku." Lin Shang held up the Hogyoku in his hand and chased after it. Eisen looked at the lifted Hogyoku thoughtfully, and then said to Lin Shang with a half-smile, "Hogyoku will stay with you for now, but I hope to see the truly powerful Arrancar as soon as possible. I believe that moment will come soon." After Eisen finished speaking, Lin Shang put away Hogyoku without hesitation. In the next few days, Lin Shang borrowed the power of Hogyoku to create a large number of Arrancars, and then performed a second Arrancar for the fake Arrancars created by Eisen. Among them, Amber, who had lost his arm, not only recovered his arm, but also further improved his strength. However, in front of the Vasto Lord level Hurley Bell and others, his strength is still not enough. On the 5th day of coming to Zai Palace, outside the laboratory, Lin Shang once again brought together Ulquiorra and Hurley Bell, among others, and of course a special guest, Baragan. After several days of non-stop Arrancar, Lin Shang has full confidence, so he called Hurley Bell and others. Of course, in order to increase the success rate, he also invited Baragan at the same time. After all, this is the first time to Arrancarize a Vasto Lord level Manos Grande. Let Baragan test it first, so that he can practice in advance, lay a knife or something. Baragan probably also knew what Lin Shang and others thought, but he didn't dare to refuse. He was afraid that if he missed this time, he would have no chance. Because at this moment, except for those people brought by Lin Shang, the huge Void Knight Palace has basically been Arrancarized. Even several of his subordinates have surpassed him in terms of strength. If he does not carry out Arrancarization, it is difficult to guarantee that those subordinates who are still loyal to him will have different ideas. So even if there is a risk here, Baragan has to bite the bullet and drill in. "Mr. Baragan, please." Lin Shang raised his hand and signaled that the door of the laboratory was in front of them. Baragan's skeletal face first looked at the excited Zael Aporo, and then at the calm Lin Shang, and he didn't know what he was thinking in those dark pupils. Why, Mr. Baragan is afraid. If you are afraid, please don't waste our time, after all there are so many people waiting. Lin Shang said indifferently. He wasn't worried about the lack of experimental materials at all, because he knew that Baragan would never let go of this opportunity. Lin Shang, I believe you just once. Baragan pondered for a long time, and finally said rather helplessly. Looking at Baragan who walked into the laboratory, Lin Shang said to Zale Aporo behind him, let's go. This time, he allowed Zale Aporo to participate in a special case, just to let him collect some sample materials of Baragan. After all, the Vastolord level Manos Grande that can be used as an experimental body in Hueco Mundo is probably the only one for Zale Aporo. Yes, Master Lin Shang. Zale Aporo waved his tentacles excitedly. This kind of rare opportunity may be the only one. In particular, the three of Eisen seemed to have left because of something today, but Lin Shang judged through another self that they should be going to the scene of the soul burial trial. Inside the laboratory, looking at the silent Baragan there, Lin Shang came over and used the power of Hogyoku very skillfully. A blue-black light shone on Baragan's body, which immediately caused the density of spiritual particles here to increase rapidly. The Manos Grande of Vastolord level had just begun, and there was an incredible power emitted. Soon, Baragan's skeleton-like body began to condense and shrink, and even grew flesh, and the mask on his face began to gradually shatter. Not long after, a burly, well-built old man showed up here. It was Baragan. At this moment, about 4/5 of the mask on his face was broken, and the remaining part formed a crown-shaped headdress. This is the power behind Arrancar. Baragan looked at his hands in disbelief. This power far surpassed him before, and even made him feel unreal. Hey, get out if you have nothing to do, we have to continue. Lin Shang said impatiently to Baragan who was still staying here. Do you think you can go on? The old man has obtained the ultimate power. From now on, I will regain my throne. Baragan said gloomily, as if he had regained his previous confidence. You guy. Lin Shang frowned and looked at Baragan, who had become arrogant again, and subconsciously threw a purple robe over. Let's put the clothes on first. What? Baragan asked in astonishment. He looked at the clothes on the ground. Although he was a little upset, he put on the clothes first. If you finish your big talk, please go out, don't make eyes on me. Lin Shang chased again. How dare you talk to this old man? This old man is the king of Hueco Mundo, the existence of the supreme god. I will let you see it today. Baragan said angrily. Suddenly, a huge Reiatsu rose here like a volcanic eruption, and the powerful Reiatsu even covered the entire Zai Palace. It really is a good experimental subject, I really hope to dissect him and study it. Zale Aporo looked at the powerful Baragan, and said a little crazy. At this moment, outside the laboratory. Is this the Reiatsu after Baragan Arrancar? Hurley Bell, Sun and others said with surprise. Compared with the Baragan they knew before, the current Reiatsu is too huge, which makes them have more expectations for Arrancarization. Inside the laboratory. Looking at the arrogant Baragan, Lin Shang laughed. You can still laugh at this time. Baragan said in his hoarse voice. He really couldn't figure it out. In this situation, what other trump cards did Lin Shang have to turn the situation around? After all, the power he gained was real. Do you think that I will not consider these situations when I help you Arrancarize? Don't tell me if I will do something, even if I don't. Do you think you are the strongest in Hueco Mundo now? Lin Shang threw out several the question asked rhetorically. This made Baragan's aura stop, and even his face began to turn blue and white. At this time, Baragan didn't believe the nonsense that someone was better than him. What he was worried about was whether Lin Shang had really done anything during his evolution. After all, he did see that Zale Aporo extracted what? Thinking of this, Baragan roared angrily at Lin Shang. What did you and Zale Aporo do to me? Just think about it yourself. Now I have two friends here who want to communicate with you. Of course, they will let you know how high the sky is. Lin Shang said calmly. In fact, he just let Zale Aporo extract some samples of Baragan, but since Baragan is so ignorant, it is necessary to put such a thorn in his heart. At this time, Baragan, who had just checked himself and found nothing abnormal, said very proudly after hearing Lin Shang's words. You mean, the current Hueco Mundo has an existence stronger than me? HMPH. What a silly joke. In Baragan's view, as long as he is Arrancarized, he is an invincible existence. Whether it is Lin Shang, Eisen or the like, they are nothing but crumbling dogs in front of him. Accompanied by Baragan's arrogant words, Stark and Lilynette walked into the laboratory, which immediately attracted everyone's attention. Hey, are you Baragan? Why do you look like an old man? Lilynette said with some disgust as soon as she came in. Where did the brat come from? How dare you talk to this old man like that? Baragan suddenly became furious, and a huge Reiatsu rose from him, pressing towards Lilynette with ferocious power. However, just when his huge Reiatsu was about to engulf Lilynette, an even bigger Reiatsu burst out from behind Lilynette, and pressed against Baragan with unstoppable power. How is that possible? Baragan said in shock. He is Baragan, the king of Hueco Mundo, and after his Arrancarization, there is actually someone whose Reiatsu is stronger than him. Who are you? Why have I never seen you in Hueco Mundo? Baragan recalled the powerful existences in Hueco Mundo, and found that there was no information about the lazy middle-aged man in front of him. Baragan, your so-called king of Hueco Mundo is nothing but self-appointed. Even if there is no invasion of other forces, your strength will hardly rank among the top 3 in Hueco Mundo. Lin Shang said mercilessly. In Lin Shang's view, Baragan is like a ferocious beast. Even if you keep him in captivity and feed him with kindness, you will be eaten back by him one day. So Lin Shang never intended to recruit Baragan, and for Baragan, it was an unimaginable shame to be someone else's subordinate. I didn't expect Stark to be so strong. Zael Aporo, who was standing aside, said in surprise. Even Ulquiorra, Hurley Bell and others outside the laboratory showed surprised expressions. Because Stark has always been lazy and has never shown his great strength, everyone naturally thinks that Stark is only a little stronger than them. It was only at this moment that they realized that Stark's strength was not even a little bit stronger than theirs. In fact, this is not to blame for their ignorance. After all, everyone who has seen Stark before is basically dead, so there are only some rumors circulating in Hueco Mundo, but no one can prove the power of Stark. Returning to the laboratory again, Lin Shang looked at Baragan, who was crushed and couldn't lift his head, and said to Stark, Stark, can you take this guy out of here? I think Xiaowu and the others can't wait. Okay. Stark lazily scratched his head. Kaido, if it wasn't for the evolution of his companions, he would definitely not be willing to fight against Baragan. After all, it is too tiring to fight against the strong. Finding that things were not going as smoothly as he had expected, Baragan seemed to have the intention to back down, and was forced to leave the laboratory by Stark's Reiatsu. Watching Baragan go away in awe, Lin Shang gave Stark an emoji of giving them to you. After Stark and Lilynette expressed their understanding, they also followed out. Before the others succeed in Arrancar, their task is to keep an eye on Baragan. With the departure of Baragan, Stark and others, a man with black wings walked into the laboratory. It was the Shy Prince Ulquiorra. Since Ulquiorra Lin entered this laboratory, the darkness of the entire room seemed to be absorbed, making it much brighter in an instant. Being a Vasto Lord level Manos Grande, Arrancar is nothing more than a bigger spiritual power and is more difficult to control, but after some familiarization just now, I am confident that I can make Arrancarization for you. Lin Shang faced the person who walked in. Ulquiorra said seriously. Well, please. Ulquiorra nodded, as if he believed Lin Shang very much. Then it will begin, Lin Shang said, holding up the Hogyoku in his hand. As a blue-black light shone here, Ulquiorra's body began to undergo tremendous changes. First, the huge black wings behind him gradually shrunk, the sharp claws on the limbs gradually changed to the hands and feet, and even the black hair on the whole body began to fade. The scene was shrouded in white mist. This is because the density of spirit particles has begun to transform from gas to liquid. Not long after, a thin figure with short black shattered hair and pale skin appeared. His face had dark green Arrancar lines that resembled tears, and he wore a half-horned mask on his head, but this mask seemed to be smaller than the original. Phew, is it really tiring this time? Lin Shang wiped the sweat from his brow and said, before throwing a piece of clothing to Ulquiorra. This time he broke the mask for Ulquiorra more than in the original book, which is why he is so tired. After all, Every time a part of the mask is broken, the difficulty will increase exponentially. Unbelievable. Ulquiorra's palm was lightly clenched, and he felt Reiatsu quickly gather at his fist, and soon there was a gust of wind blowing here. Xiaowu, are you going to tear down my place? Lin Shang hastily stopped Ulquiorra's next move. If this punch is really punched, it's hard to say whether his laboratory is still there. Sorry, I didn't expect that just a little force would be so powerful. Ulquiorra said slightly apologetically, but his face was expressionless. This reminded Lin Shang of cats. Even if they apologized, they would be cold. However, Ulquiorra's mood changes obviously a lot today, and it seems that the power brought by Arrancarization has made him a little bit uncontrollable. Pulling his thoughts back, Lin Shang realized that Ulquiorra had put away his power, so he stopped talking. Then he turned to Zael Aporo and said, "It's up to you, Zael Aporo." "Is it my turn so soon?" Zael Aporo said with some surprise. He thought he was the last one. "Don't you want to be Arrancarized?" Lin Shang looked at Zael Aporo with some deep meaning. "How come? Being able to personally experience the process of Arrancarization is of great help to my research." Zael Aporo hastily revealed a look of fascination. "In that case, let's get started," Lin Shang said and wanted to stimulate the power of Hogyoku in his hand. "Lord Lin Shang, wait a moment, I still need to make some preparations." Zael Aporo shouted, and then took out a gorgeous costume and put it beside him. It seemed that he had been preparing for this moment for a long time. Seeing Zael Aporo who was finally ready, Lin Shang didn't hesitate, and immediately inspired Hogyoku's power. After a flash of blue-black light, a man with short pink hair and golden eyes stood in front of Lin Shang. It was Zael Aporo transformed from Arrancar. At this time, his mask is only the eye part, which looks like he is wearing a pair of glasses. "Is this Arrancarization? It's so wonderful," Zael Aporo said in surprise, looking at his hands and feet. At this moment, his original tentacles have been converted into human hands and feet. Looking at the ecstatic Zael Aporo, Lin Shang reminded from the side, "How is it? After gaining this power, do you want to do something?" These words made Zael Aporo stop laughing. He first put on the clothes he had prepared in an orderly manner, and then responded calmly, "I don't know what Mr. Lin Shang is referring to. Some things I wanted to do but didn't dare to do before, such as dissecting me," Lin Shang said calmly. At this time Ulquiorra also raised his head, staring at Shielaporo's back with his emerald green indifferent pupils, as if he would take away Shielaporo's heart in the next second. Feeling a bone-chilling chill behind him, Zael Aporo glanced sideways at Ulquiorra, who was ready to go, and then pursed his lips and said with a smile, "Master Lin Shang was joking, it's all an old thing." "Really? In order to show loyalty to the new master, shouldn't I kill the old master first?" Lin Shang said with a gleam of coldness in his eyes. In fact, he has no definite evidence, but Zael Aporo is just at the moment when he has just acquired a new power and is proud and complacent. Sure enough, Shielaporo's face changed after hearing this. It seems that he really has some ulterior secrets. "It seems that you already know it, but I have no plans to join Eisen. I think your chances of winning are better," Zael Aporo said still respectfully. "You leaked our information to Eisen, right?" Although Lin Shang asked, he seemed to know the answer. Zael Aporo was a cunning guy, and he never let his guard down from the start. "Master Lin Shang, you're blaming me. I just gave Eisen some irrelevant information to gain his trust. I didn't say anything about our core information," Zael Aporo argued with a smile. In fact, at this point, Zael Aporo really did not deceive Lin Shang. His original plan was to bet on both sides, so that no matter whether it is Eisen or Lin Shang, no matter who wins in the end, his experimental research will not be delayed. "So I blame you?" Lin Shang asked blankly. Obviously he didn't fully believe what Zael Aporo said. "I can also understand Master Lin Shang's doubts. The next time Eisen asks me to pass on information, I will ask you for instructions in advance," Zael Aporo said, still maintaining a respectful look. "It's okay to be disrespectful, after all, Ulquiorra is staring at him firmly behind him, but if he gives a wrong answer today, he may not be able to get out of this laboratory." Zael Aporo estimated that he would lose with a high probability of losing against the Arrancarized Ulquiorra, and it would be difficult to win Lin Shang in a short time, so he planned to try not to conflict with him. Of course, whether it is Eisen or Lin Shang, he has no intention of confronting them. Anyway, whoever is stronger can rely on whoever is stronger. Seeing Lin Shang, who had been silent all this time, Zale Aporo said with a smile, "If Master Lin Shang has no other orders, I won't bother you here." After speaking, Zale Aporo carefully retreated towards the door of the laboratory. Just as he was about to leave here, Lin Shang stopped him again. "Zale Aporo." "Huh, Master Lin Shang, is there anything else you want?" Zale Aporo stopped in his tracks, turned around and asked. "Nothing special, just a piece of advice for you." At this time, Lin Shang seemed to have seen through Aporo's small thoughts, so he stopped him and prepared to beat him. "Oh, then I really want to hear it," Zale Aporo said to Kaido with a smile on his face. He felt that the words were threatening at best. This world does not need the appearance of Ilfert Gurrens. Of course, I don't want you to be made into a specimen because of your wrong choice. Lin Shang showed a mysterious smile, as if he had seen Aporo's life like the specimen was the same. "How is it possible? How did you know about Ilfert?" The smile on Aporo's face that had been maintained since Arrancar became completely froze at this moment. This is because Ilfert Gurrens is his big brother, and that has been a long time ago, even going back to when they were human beings. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.